planning on that Wisconsin defensive front?
A lot of their production from their defense, it's hand in hand. It works together. Their coverage allows them to get pressure up front, and they have some guys that do really good and pick games up front.
With a win, Oregon will be 11-0 for only the second time in school history and secure a spot in the Big Ten title game. Oregon State is at Air Force. 12:30 kick, pregame at 10:30 on your home of the Beavs, 1190 KX. Mike Tyson and Jake Paul scheduled to meet tonight at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Coverage on Netflix starts at 5.
It's time for the Rip City Drive, brought to you by Lazy Boy. What's your strategy for comfort? Featuring the crazy and often irrational longtime Portland radio vet, Chad Dewing.
No, I don't believe in the word legacy. I just think that's another word for ego. Legacy doesn't mean nothing. That's just some word everybody grabbed onto. Someone said that word and everyone grabbed on the word, so now it's used every 5 seconds. It means absolutely nothing to me. I'm just passing through. I'm going to die, and it's going to be over. Who cares about legacy after that? With a big ego, so I'm going to die. I want people to think that I'm this, I'm great. No, we're nothing. We're just dead. We're dust. We're absolutely nothing. Our legacy is nothing.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That is something that I have not heard before, someone say that as an answer.
Can you really imagine somebody say, I want my legacy to be this way when you're dead? Why do you want somebody, do you think somebody really wants to think about you? What's the audacity? I think, I want people to think about me when I'm gone. Who the cares about me when I'm gone? Well, my kids maybe, or grandkids.
Yeah,
who the cares?
And again, thank you so much for sharing that.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Dewing starts now.
Blocked by Klingon again. Picked up off the window. 3-on-2 for the Blazers. Obvi at a bend. Up and under. Banks it in. Timeout, Minnesota. Blazers have their largest lead. 83-78. 18-6 run with 9:58 to play in the fourth. Back to Grant. 10 seconds to shoot. Has it straight away. Lost his dribble. Gets it back. Now he drives. Turns. 5 to shoot. Works into the lane. Stops. Fades. Short. Shaden Sharp with a putback. Cocked it back and slammed it down. My goodness. Woo! 91-83. He read it perfectly.
All you have to do is hear that soundbite, and it should motivate you to watch the fight tonight with Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. I think there's going to be like 280 million people tuned in to watch that. I'm in 100%. I love big fights. I grew up with them, and I want them desperately. So I don't know what it's going to look like tonight, but I've got to watch. Because Mike Tyson, you know, I'm in that age bracket. I know a lot of you guys out there can relate to this, but he was an iconic figure when I was younger. Iconic. To the point where you would talk about Mike, your friends would talk about Mike, you would gather together for the big fights, and he was a legend because he was known as just being a dog, a badass, someone that other grown men, fighters were afraid of. I'll never forget going to Tahoe with my family. This is like back in 1988. We had gone on some family trip down to California, and we made our trip. It was over a couple of weeks, and we came up through some different areas, and we stayed with family. And my Uncle Melvin worked at Harrah's at the casino. And he was great because Uncle Melvin was one of those guys that would wine and dine the big rollers that would come through. So every time we stopped off there or came as a family, he would hook us up in the best hotel rooms and get us set up with the brunch and the whole deal. So he treated us like royalty. My Uncle Melvin was awesome. He was roommates with my dad in college when they were at Oklahoma State together. So I've always been close to Melvin. Well, it was cool to go to Harrah's and hang out with him. And I'll never forget it because we went there on a night where Tyson was fighting Michael Spinks. And we got set up in the hotel. We went down to have dinner. And Uncle Melvin came by and visited us for, a few minutes. He's like, hey, I have to go and hang out with some of our clientele. There's a big fight, Mike Tyson. We got to go watch it. So he stepped away. And then like 5 minutes later, he's back. And we're like, I thought you were going to go watch the fight. And he's like, I did. It's over. It was one of those deals where Tyson came out. He had won the fight before it began. And, 30 seconds in, he destroys Spinks and moves on to the next fight. I mean, that's how big it was. And then we saw all the different things that went on with Tyson, with the Robin Givens marriage, the infamous Barbara Walters interview, the rape conviction. He spent time in prison. And then when he got out, he was back to fighting again. And we just thought when we were younger that Mike Tyson, based on the path he was on, that he would be dead by now because he lived a destructive lifestyle. So I think when you look at Tyson and where he's at today and the way that he's reinvented himself, and a lot of people give credit to his now wife to help him with that reconstruction, it's amazing. It's truly amazing that he's alive and he's thriving now at, 58 years old, and now he's going to get back in the ring with Jake Paul. My only concern about the fight when I first heard this was coming up, is it going to be real? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is it going to be a fight that we're going to watch and know that it's legit? Or is it already, is it going to be like a wrestling deal where they have an agreement, it's going to go a certain way, and it's not going to be a real fight? So I thought about that for a bit, and then I was like, wait a second, we're talking about Mike effing Tyson. The one thing I can tell you about Tyson is he's not going to go out there and put on a show. He's not going to take a dive. He's not going to go out there and pretend. He may not be the fighter he once was, but he's going to go out there and fight. There's no BS with Mike Tyson. He's just not going to do it. And then I saw the weigh-in with the slap and the way that Paul was disrespecting him, and I'm like, okay, it's on. I will be pulling for Tyson. He's an underdog in this fight and probably should be at age 58. But the one thing you know about fighters is the ones that can throw a big punch, you never lose that ability. So if he connects, if he's able to get a couple of good punches in, he could get this win. So I'm going to pull for Tyson. But I got to watch. I can't not watch this. And great boxing, heavyweight fights are few and far between now. Boxing as a whole is thriving. And there are some really good fighters out there, but UFC has taken over. But these are the type of nights I love where you get together with buddies, you hang out, you watch the fight, you can talk about Tyson and everything that comes with it. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And it's on Netflix. So are you going to watch the fight tonight? And if so, what are you expecting from Mike Tyson? Do you think that the fight is going to be legit? Or do you think it's somewhat pre-planned and they're just going to go out there and try and put on a good show? I don't believe that, but I know a lot of people are suspicious because you have a 58-year-old getting into the ring against some guy that I guess is a professional fighter, but he's more of a YouTube creation. Or as Mike Tyson said, he was created by television and by the internet to be a supposed killer, but I am a natural born killer. And that to me is the big difference. Mike Tyson is, and I quote, a natural born killer. Jake Paul is not that guy. So I don't know if he knows what he's getting himself into, but it's going to be fun to watch. Mike Tyson. Whew. But you have to admit, the way he reinvented himself, he's not dead. How is Mike Tyson not dead based on the path he was on many years ago? And then before you know it, you turn on, he's in freaking movies. So I'm fascinated by Tyson. So it's going to be fun tonight. We're going to check that out, and it should be a good time. So if you got any thoughts on what you think about the fight and whether or not it's going to be legit, I would love to get your take on that. But it's must-see television tonight on Netflix, Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. I think it's scheduled to start at 5, but there are some undercard fights as well. So I don't know the exact time that Tyson and Paul are going to be in the ring. Now, I do want to talk about the Ducks. We got a big weekend of college football. As I mentioned before, with playoff expansion, it is the gift that keeps on giving. We have 20 or so teams that are still alive for a potential playoff berth, and we also have 15 games on the schedule this weekend that have playoff implications. Number 1, Oregon is going to be at Wisconsin. It's a big game for the Ducks because with a win, Oregon will clinch a spot in the Big Ten title game and will await either Indiana or Ohio State, who are going to meet here in just a matter of days. And Oregon will also be 11-0 for only the second time in school history following the 2010 team that we're all familiar with that played in the BCS National Championship game against Auburn. Wisconsin right now is next to last in the Big Ten in rush defense, which is a little bit weird for Wisconsin based on what they've been in the past. They're giving up an average of 165 yards per game. That could be good news for Oregon, who has gotten better week by week, getting the balance back in the offense, the explosion in the run game, and the way that they're able to get off at the line of scrimmage. But the one thing to keep an eye on the Badgers, while their rush defense is not good, they have one of the best pass defenses in the country, top 10. So how will Dylan Gabriel and his receiving core deal with that? And I don't think Tez Johnson's going to go, so that means Evan Stewart will have to be the main figure in that passing game. Now, Luke Fickell, who I think is a really good head coach, has taken over at Wisconsin, as you know. They're not the Wisconsin that you're used to seeing where they're kind of ground and pound. They're more of an RPO type system now, which can present some, different challenges for you. And they're also trying to become bowl eligible. But this is an opportunity for Oregon. Get the win. You're going to finish unbeaten because they're going to beat Washington, and then you move on and get ready for the Big Ten title game. But just remember, the most important thing is not finishing the regular season unbeaten. I really believe it's irrelevant. I couldn't care less if the Ducks finish unbeaten or not. All that matters right now for Oregon is to get into the Big Ten title game and win that game. Whether you play Ohio State again or you face Indiana. You've got to win that game so you can secure a first-round bye. Because the ultimate goal is to win a championship, and whatever you need to do to put yourself in the best position to do that is all that matters. Now, here's Dan Lanning yesterday talking about his club, about the importance of making it fun when you go through the mundane things, when you're focusing on details, and he talks a little bit about Wisconsin.
The mundane is really important in our sport. You have to be able to do the simple things consistently over and over and over again. I think the challenge for you as a coach is how can you make that mundane interesting, right? How can you continue to say we're going to push and do the stuff that's really simple, right, but keep it fresh for our players. So that's always our challenge.
Who are the coaches you've studied? What are the sort of philosophies you try to implement as far as that goes?
Yeah, anything and everything, right? We'll pull from anywhere, anything we see. Try to use that as motivation.
Last Wednesday, you said that you wanted to see more attention to details going into the game against. But then, how do you feel like you guys did this week in terms of attention to detail?
Yeah, today's Wednesday practice was much better than last Wednesday, but still plenty of room for growth.
Coach, how would you describe Mateo's impact?
Yeah, he's an impactful player. I had high expectations for him when he got here, and he's exceeded those expectations with the way he's worked. It's a really good room, that outside linebacker room. He's certainly a big part of that.
Looking at this 8-game stretch, where do you see the biggest growth maybe on both offense and defense from that first game to now?
Just playing as a team, right? Just uniquely playing as a team. I think that there's been a lot of growth in those moments of having each other's six, right? Having each other's back in moments. I think that's shown up consistently, whether it's the offense bailing out the defense or the defense bailing out the offense or special teams coming with a big play and really focusing on the next play.
At least being a focus of attention, Dan, just has been cleaner in practice so far this week.
Yeah, we had 5 today. We had 13 last Wednesday, so it was cleaner, but it can still be cleaner than it normally than it is.
The secondary specifically been handling that issue.
They've been wearing boxing gloves all week. That's helped.
A lot of their defensive production comes from their front seven. Just what stands out about 94 specifically on their front?
Yeah, twitch, right? He's got great twitch, and I think again a lot of their production from their defense, it's hand in hand. It works together. Their coverage allows them to get pressure up front, and they have some guys that do really good and pick games up front.
All right, there is head coach Dan Lanning, Oregon and Wisconsin tomorrow. What I've been impressed with so far with Oregon this year is just the improvement at the line of scrimmage, at the point of attack. Like the game at Michigan, limiting them to 100 yards rushing, not giving up sacks, and controlling the game that way, which is how you win a championship. And so tomorrow at Wisconsin, there could be times where it's going to be tough to move the ball through the air, but that's okay. When you're stout up front, you can lean on that. You can lean on your run game. You can lean on your defense to stop the run and then put yourself in a position to win. I just think they're constructed in a better way, which can put you in a position to win a national championship. All right, we'll come back and we'll talk more college football, and we'll focus in on the Broncos. Brandon Krisztal from Denver will join me. I want to get his take on Coach Prime and the Buffs and the work they've done this year. And then Bo Nix and the Broncos, can they grab one of those 7 playoff spots in the AFC? We'll find out next. All right, don't forget Michael Holton going to be in the studio at 5:20. Joining us now is a man from Guerrilla Sports, also a Fox Sports radio correspondent, my good friend from Denver, Brandon Krisztal. Brandon, it's great to have you back on the show. I want to start with this. Are you going to watch Tyson and Paul tonight?
I will. I have Netflix, so I mean, I'm not sitting down with popcorn, but I'll either have it on, iPad or whatever. I think we're doing holiday decorations tonight, Christmas trees and whatnot, and so that's going to cut into it some. But no, I certainly will keep an eye on it.
Do you think this fight's going to be legit? Because that's really all I care about is I want it to be a legitimate fight. What do you expect?
I hope that it's a legitimate fight. Because I'm old enough to remember watching Mike Tyson fight the first time around, and so it's exciting to think about him back in the ring. But he is also 58 years old now. He looks like he's in really good shape for being 58, and so I think it's cool that he's boxing. I think the whole Jake Paul thing and who he chooses to fight is clearly, made for TV and kind of a sideshow. Not that that's not what boxing is anyway, and we know the sport's evolved, especially at the heavyweight level. But I'm hoping it's a legitimate fight, and I hope Mike kicks as you-know-what, because I'd love to see Mike looking dominant again.
Yeah, me too. I'm with you on that. We'll get to the Broncos in a moment, but I want to start with college football. I'm loving the sport right now more than ever, Brandon. And with playoff expansion, we have right now 20 or so teams that are still alive for a possible playoff berth. There's 15 games with implications tomorrow, which is the second week of November. What do you think about the game with the impact so far with playoff expansion?
I love it. And I think it's going to be good for the sport. And I think that it makes games does Georgia play Tennessee this weekend maybe? But
they do.
These SEC, there's SEC games like that are essentially do or die. So instead of the 4 teams getting in and the 5th team getting out, you're going to allow more folks to come to the party, but you're still going to have these games that mean as much as those games in previous iterations of the playoff and of the bowl system meant. They just come with teams that have 1 or 2 losses, and in fact, it gives teams that are great that with 1 loss or with an undefeated season and get aced out because they look at them and say, oh, well, your quarterback went down. Well, now they still get that shot to go to the playoff, and it allows – look, I went to the University of Kansas. We're certainly a basketball powerhouse, never really a football powerhouse, but there was a scenario where we would have had the year that kind of Colorado is having or that Iowa State is having, where you're at least in the mix for a conference championship to play in that game, and then that'll get you into the playoff no matter what. So I think it's great, and it's obviously fun with what's going on up there in your neck of the woods with how good Oregon's playing. But even if they drop a game, they'll still have a chance to play, not only potentially play Ohio State again, but play a team from the SEC or from another conference and go toe to toe with them. So and they're incorporating the bowls and the stuff on campus will be cool. I think it's great.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. You mentioned Colorado. I'm a staunch defender of Coach Prime. I believe in him, Brandon, and what he's doing. The Buffs control their destiny for the Big 12 title game. What do you think about the job he's doing with the program and the improvement from year 1 to year 2?
It really is remarkable because it helps having a son who's an NFL quarterback, who's maybe going to be the top quarterback taken, certainly one of the first couple, and a generational talent who's done stuff that we've really never seen, certainly in the modern football era, for as good as Charles Woodson was. I heard somebody bring up Chris Gamble at Ohio State, or even Primetime, who didn't play a lot of offense at Florida State, but was big in the return game. To see what Travis Hunter is doing on both sides of the ball and playing that many snaps has been awesome. And then they got the best tackle in the country to come out of high school from IMG, and he's played really well. And now more kids are going to maybe potentially follow, but they still had to mix and match in the portal, and they were criticized for it, and they had a rough game at Nebraska. And you thought, okay, it's going to be fun to watch the highlights when Shador and his stable, if you got a handful of NFL receivers actually, as well as Travis Hunter make plays, but they're just not going to be able to hold their own. Now, I thought they would because I just kind of had an idea of what the Big 12 would look like. So I wasn't as down on them in terms of being where they are right now, but to see how they've done it and how they've bounced back and how the defense has really come along and made plays and found playmakers there has been impressive. And so I understand the conversation about him potentially going to play or going to coach in Dallas with Jerry. I think Jerry Jones, as much as he loves Deion and wants to be right on stuff, understands who Deion is and probably isn't in a hurry to make that move, I wouldn't think. But I won't be surprised if Deion, if he's getting this Juju Lewis kid to end up coming, and he's had some other 4- and 5-star kids that are committing or certainly taking visits. There's going to be a couple there this weekend, tomorrow, actually. for the Utah game and are probably obviously already on campus now if they're not playing in playoff games somewhere or whatever. And at this point, I'm almost thinking he will stick around for another year or two, if not more, because of kind of how he has it rolling. And like we talked about, was what the playoff can mean and how you can get there where you don't have to go undefeated in the major conference and then hope that the committee likes you, that you just have to kind of get to your championship game and you're probably going to be in the mix unless you have 3 or 4 losses. And so I think it's been really fun to see him take advantage of the opportunity of NIL work coming in at the right time and the playoffs and the realignment with the conferences. But you have to give them credit for how well they're playing on the field, and they're winning games. And that's what matters most.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're talking about Brandon Krisztal from Denver. With Coach Prime, I feel like the fit with him in Colorado appears to be really good, meaning when you go to Colorado and they give you a blank canvas to create whatever type of program you want, he's got the total freedom and the support to be able to do that. But, like other schools you go to, whether it be like Oklahoma or maybe Alabama, they've got certain traditions and the way they do things where they expect you to kind of adhere to that. But at Colorado, he's got free reign. That's got to be intoxicating to him on some level, I would think.
Yeah, he's kind of created his own little kingdom in Boulder where there's a private airport. It's not the one that's used as much by guys like Peyton Manning and John Elway. That's kind of on the south side of town. But there's one in Boulder that is certainly used by people on the north side of town that is 10 minutes from campus. So he can be on a private plane to California, Texas, the Midwest, in 2 hours, give or take, and can be to Florida in 3 and change. And no one's bothering him. He also has the cloud cover of not only really good NBA teams and hockey teams right now here in town. They have the Broncos are always going to dominate plenty of the airspace and plenty of the headlines. And on a Monday, even if they win or lose on a Saturday, we're obviously talking about them a little more, but still going to react to the Broncos game most. And then, this is really fun. Let's make sure we're talking about the Buffs as well and all of that. But so he really can just be on his own island, and I think he really likes that. And Boulder's a really beautiful place to live. It's a cool place to live. It's a progressive city. Deion Sanders, I don't know if I've talked with you guys about this, and I haven't talked to him, but I have talked to people around it. He's been a black man in America and a black man in the South most of his life. He lived in Dallas after he got done playing, but minus Jackson, Mississippi. But in Jackson, Mississippi, he was a target. If he goes to someplace in the South, even though he's Deion Sanders, Hall of Famer, one of the best pitchmen of all time, likely would have more money than people talking to him, doesn't mean boosters won't still talk down to him, right? And so it doesn't mean that an Ohio State or a Michigan comes calling or USC, he can't listen to them, or Oregon for that matter. But right now, I think with what he has dialed in at Boulder, I'd be hard-pressed to see if he wants to stick in coaching, specifically college coaching, and it's not an NFL job that appeals to him, then I think he'll stay there. And also, he's the reason people are coming. And so you can't do that in the NFL. Like, you're not signing with the Cowboys because Deion's the head coach. You're signing with the Cowboys because they give you the most money in free agency.
Hey, Brandon, if you had a Heisman vote to cast today, would it go to Ashton Genty, Travis Hunter, or Dylan Gabriel?
Travis Hunter, and it wouldn't be close, because what Dylan Gabriel is doing is great, but we've seen that before, and we've seen even better numbers. What Austin Genty's doing is really impressive. But one, he's doing it at Boise, and so that's not his fault, but he's just not playing even the level of competition Barry Sanders was doing, or Ron Dane, or we can go down the list of all the Heisman winners. They all come almost, in the modern era, or, since the 60s, against really big schools. And so, big programs and big conferences. So it doesn't mean that he's not really impressive, and hopefully he'll be a really good back in the pros. But Travis Hunter's doing something that we've really never seen. I touched on it earlier. And so when you're that unique, and I think the voters are sophisticated enough now. We know the voting body's gotten younger just because of the nature of the sport and the nature of, our business as well, that I think they'll recognize that playing 130 snaps at such a high level, even if his receiver numbers aren't, top 5 receiver numbers across the country, and he's not intercepting a pass every game or having 10 tackle games and 3 pass breakups, the fact that he's out there affecting his team and they're winning, if they can beat the Utes tomorrow, go to KC next week at Arrowhead and beat my Jayhawks who are trending up, and then come back and beat Oklahoma State here in Boulder the day after Thanksgiving, then you've got a team that's 10-2. They're in the Big 12 championship game, and he's obviously almost certainly, and unless something happens that we don't want to see happen, he's going to be a big part of it, even if his numbers aren't, a 200-yard receiving game or a 3-touchdown game again in any of those. I think that'll be enough for voters, especially if he plays well in the Big 12 title game, because I think Boats will be due that Monday, then I think we will not only see him in New York with those other two guys, but I think we'll actually see him holding the hardware.
We're talking with Brandon Krisztal here on the Rip City Drive. I want to ask you about this play.
Lutz waiting for the snap. Placement is down. Lutz's kick is blocked. It's blocked. It's blocked. The Chiefs blocked the kick. They're going to stay undefeated. The kid.
Just awful, Brandon. That play right there. Alex Forsythe, former Duck, is the one who got put on his back on that play. Over the course of the week, have you been able to determine what happened and who's to blame for that disaster?
Yeah, to say Alex Forsythe isn't to blame is both accurate, but also maybe a little untrue, because he still has to. They put you in that position because they trust you and you got to make the blocks. But he's been getting drilled for several straight weeks, and I don't know if that's completely his fault, but just based on their alignment, whether he was in there as a starting center when Luke Wattenberg was out or when Luke's played, there's video of him against pretty much every opponent in recent weeks, including in New Orleans and Baltimore, of just getting knocked off the ball, like knocked back into almost the line of the kicker. And so they're going to overload a side, and I get that. But he has an offensive tackle to his left playing tight end. You almost wonder, why aren't they switched around? And Matt Pert, who's the extra tackle, why isn't he essentially the tight end, which is the position Forsythe has, if you will? If you got the long snapper, guard, tackle, tight end, he's the, quote, tight end. But I do blame the coaches more, because if they saw it as a vulnerability, and there was a kick that almost got blocked in the game earlier, a PAT against the Chiefs, and Leo Chenal is maybe the strongest guy on the Chiefs, so it helps having a super strong guy that can get leverage and get low and get underneath him. But Forsythe certainly handled it well. I think all things considered, I know that he took more blame than probably should have been assigned to him. And then we saw where Bo Nix Wednesday not only had his guys back, and everyone has to this point, and that's usually the sign of a good team, a team that's together. Bo reminded us that Alex has been through more than most people should ever have to go through, with the tragic loss of his dad back in 2012 in that shooting. And so that does allow you to put it into perspective that, yeah, they lost a game. And that's something Bo's done pretty well kind of throughout the year when they've had some losses. And I've asked him some questions where he's given a pretty thoughtful answer. And there's an appreciation for things beyond football and as well as kind of the significance of a game and all of that. But it'll be interesting to see, because we don't get to watch, any real part of practice. Will Forsythe still be out there in that same spot, or what adjustment they will make? Because I think you'd have a hard time leading him out there just based on how that game ended, even if it wasn't his fault, per se, and the coaches who did take the blame, are to blame.
All right, I got one more question for you. You mentioned Bo. He played a very clean game at Kansas City, aside from a couple of bad sacks, but from game one up until now, where do you think the biggest improvement in his game has been?
I just think I don't say his poise, but his comfort level with everything in the NFL. And he's being sacked the least of any quarterback in the NFL. He's not putting up Star Wars numbers, if you will, or the numbers that he put up at Oregon. But I think that's okay, because he's not trying to do too much. He's not trying to make too many plays with his legs. He's not throwing into trouble too much. He's protecting the ball extremely well, just like we saw really every year he was in college. Even his worst year at Auburn, I think he had 7 picks, and I think maybe 2 years ago he had 6 at Oregon. Does that sound right?
Yes.
One of the years it was 6, I think. So, and then last year was 2 or 3 or whatever. So he's decisive. He understands Sean's offense. He's able to do more kind of each week. So it's not that the playbook is being opened up anymore. I think it's more just a comfort level week over week, because I think he understands the entire playbook. It's more just about what can he do, what does Sean like, what does Bo like, and I think they're really working well together and starting to get to know each other. I asked Sean about that this week, because we grade him kind of every week. Oh, how'd he do? And you talk about the first half against the Chiefs. He's not taking sacks. That drive late to run the clock all the way down, the throw he makes on 3rd down to Cortland Sutton to basically let them ice the game in terms of, running the clock down to zeros or 3 seconds or whatever. It was a big time throw. And so we're having to grade kind of each thing, almost like we're grading every assignment instead of the test, if you will.
Yeah.
But he's still passing most tests if you look at it, but he's, they're 5 and 5. And so it's been fun to see. I think the question is, what is his ceiling? And we can't really answer that yet. We'll have to answer that in the next 3 or 4 years.
All right, Brandon, I appreciate your time. It's good to talk with you. So Christmas decoration night. So has your wife got you pulling a bunch of boxes out of the attic or the basement, or What's that process
Oh,
like?
yeah. Well, yeah, we hang the trees up, hang them. I put them up in the garage on shelving, and then all the boxes in the basement.
Yeah.
So we'll be doing all of it, here shortly. So
well, good.
It's gonna be fun, and then I'll be in Boulder tomorrow morning, so that'll be fun too.
Oh, it's gonna be great, man. We'll enjoy it, dude. It's a lot of fun right now. I appreciate your time, and we'll catch up soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Chad.
There you go, Brandon Krisztal, talking some sports here on the show. The Broncos will take on the Falcons. They just got to win some games. They got some very winnable games coming up next. They got the Falcons, the Browns, the Colts, some other scrub in there, the Raiders. So they got 4 very winnable games coming up on the schedule. Big thanks to Brandon Krisztal. I think November 15th might be a bit early to pull out the decorations. Might be a bit early. And I know my dad, he'll be complaining because my mom will be like, I think it's time to put up the decorations. And then every year he's got to get up in the attic. That's a whole thing. And you got to haul the boxes down, the whole shebang. Let's go out to the phones, 503-248-0620, Rip City Drive. Dave Deckard's coming up at 420. Let's go out to Sean and Sandy. Sean, appreciate the call, buddy. What's on your mind?
Hey, Chad, I love to see the Colorado this year, and they've been great entertainment.
Yes. Yes.
And I just wonder, the Heisman Trophy, that goes out to the best college football player. And I don't know if Travis Hunter is the best player offensively or defensively. I mean, I love to see what he's doing this year, and I love all the snaps and everything else, but that's going to be a touchy vote. And then on Shedeur, I think his dad's kind of tailored the offense to him. And I don't know whether he'd be better or worse on a team like Ohio State. Sometimes I think, man, he might even be better on Ohio State. He might have better players around him, better coaches. But then I don't know if everything's just been tailored for him. So I'm just so curious to see what happens at the next level. And then I want to see how Sanders does with the next group of players. And I want to take your opinion on that, brother. Have a great night.
You too, man. I appreciate it. Enjoy the fight. Enjoy the Tyson Paul fight. I know you're going to watch, Sean. Well, I think, first off, the offense being tailored around, Shedeur. Any great coach will tailor his offense around the strengths of his quarterback. Shedeur is playing with some elite talent at receiver. The offensive line is not elite. But I do think that, if you put him on a team, just put him on the best roster, you put him on Oregon. I think Shedeur would be putting up even better numbers. But he'll be the number one quarterback taking the draft. But if you go back to what Alex Brink said on the show, what was that, yesterday? That he likes the crop, but he said that each quarterback has, certain things they've got to continue to work on. But his accuracy, his leadership, he's taking less sacks this year. But the fact that he's still able to stand in and show toughness and deliver the football on time and with accuracy, with the subpar offensive line, I think is terrific. And Travis Hunter's no doubt the best player in college football. I don't know if he's going to win the Heisman because the numbers Genty's putting up are ridiculous. All right, Tony in Boring, stay there. I saved you for the next segment because we have things to talk about. Dave Deckard's coming up at 4:20. Chad doing Rip City Drive. All right, Dave Deckard, BlazersEdge.com. He's going to join the show coming up at 4:20. And we've got Tyson and Paul coming up tonight on Netflix. I think the action gets underway at around 5. Let's go out to the phones. I think Tony and Boring's going to check in tonight. Tony, my man, are you all in on the fight tonight?
I'm all in. I've always enjoyed heavyweight boxing matches. Of course, we haven't had anything good in quite some time, so we'll take what they give us. And I don't know, it's got potential for some fireworks. I think we're going to be watching for, any kind of shenanigans, if you will, in lieu of maybe setting up another big payday fight between these two guys.
Yeah, I guess that's my main concern is that when you tune in tonight, is it going to be real? Is it going to be legit? It sounds like you had the same concern I did.
I do, and especially with it being free on Netflix, that maybe if they can concoct something that maybe they can do a pay-per-view for the second fight, might be in the works. But I'll be pulling for Mike, but I really think Jake should win the fight and will win the fight. I've watched pretty much all Mike Tyson's fights. I have a big boxing family growing up, lucky to have HBO. I saw every fight pretty much up until the Buster Douglas, but I was 16, so I started doing some other things at that time, but I couldn't believe I missed that fight and he had lost. I mean, I remember like Frank Bruno, 6'3", just full of muscle. Like, oh, it's going to get Mike. And, he beat everybody that came his way until that. Well, I did get him in Mike Tyson's punch-out before Douglas did, but that's a different deal.
Mike Tyson punch-out's legendary. You know what's funny about that Douglas-Tyson fight? Like Tyson, I can't emphasize this enough, and you're in the same age bracket I'm in, Tony. Like, he was almost a mythical type figure because he was so badass and he was so unbeatable in his earlier days in the ring that when we found out, and I still remember exactly where I was at when we found out that Mike Tyson had been beaten by Buster Douglas in Tokyo, that I was stunned. I could not believe it went down. And then I got the copy of Sports Illustrated in the mail showing him on the canvas knocked out. I was stunned. Couldn't believe it.
I was like the biggest sporting mystery, I guess, of my young sporting life. Like that, I was right there with you. I couldn't believe I missed it. I don't know what I was doing, but unfortunately, the kids these days, they could just go on YouTube and watch it the next day. We were, unable to do that. So it took me a long time before I was able to even watch that fight.
All right, you've been hitting me up. I mentioned my story of having the experience at the dentist. I had a guy hygienist, which I've never had before, and I just prefer female doctors up and down the board, so I requested that only female hygienists in the future. But you said you've got a good recommendation, so make sure you send it over.
I have already sent it over. It's up to you to take me up on the offer.
Okay.
I promise you will not be disappointed.
And you said if I'm disappointed, if I don't believe the service is great, that you'll give me $100.
That is correct.
Yes. All right.
Yes.
All right.
I guarantee you will be absolutely – I don't even have to call them to tell them that. As long as you get my dentist hygienist, and if for some reason you need the dentist for, a cavity or something like that, I think you'll be extremely impressed with her needle skills. Like, you don't really even feel anything, man. It's amazing.
Dude.
And that's the way it should be. It's awesome. I mean, that's the worst thing, going to the dentist. If they can make it somewhat pleasurable, I mean, I think it's a win.
I'm with you on that. I don't like going to the dentist, so I like to be as comfortable as possible.
Well, if you go there, I promise you will be.
All right, dude. Enjoy the fight tonight. We'll catch up soon.
All right, thank you. And hey, on the Bears note, real quick,
yeah,
I sure hope Caleb has a good relationship with this Thomas Brown guy. He definitely didn't have one with Shane Waldron. Well, that last game I was watching, when coming over to the sideline, there was some funny looks, and then towards the end, there was no eye contact at all, and you could just see like something was going on. There's no surprise that he got fired like 3 days later.
Yeah, he's gone, and the Bears, as you know, Tony, they just got to get a different head coach. They've got to bring in an offensive-minded head coach. That organization is like, gosh, Bears, you've been waiting your whole lives to get a franchise quarterback, and then you finally get an opportunity to draft one. You might want to go out of your way to make sure he's well taken care of. Get him the right support around him, the right offensive coaches who can coach him up, be able to use the refining fire to get some of the impurities out of his game so he can stop holding out of the football and become more efficient at delivering it on time and on target. and get the right people around him. It's just like we have in Washington, with Jaden Daniels at Cliff Kingsbury. They brought him in, and what is he known for? Taking the talent he's got and building an offense around to put those guys in a position to succeed. That's all they need to do. The Bears should have made the move last year, but they decided to, keep Eberflus, and I just think that was a bad idea. Look at the two guys right now. Bo Nix, he's got Sean Payton. He is thriving. Jaden Daniels has Cliff Kingsbury. He's thriving. Put them in a position to succeed. Now, I give credit to Drake May. He's played well so far for the Patriots, and they've got a defensive coach. I'm just a big believer in having a good offensive mind, a good support staff, and the right coaching to put these guys in a position to succeed, especially when you have so much invested in them. And I just believe that Caleb Williams is going to be a star. Jaden Daniels is going to be a star. The tough loss last night to Philly, but there's no shame in that loss. Philadelphia is one of the best teams in football right now. Right now, and again, this is early, but a potential Philadelphia-Detroit matchup in the NFC title game would be nice. Philadelphia's got the best roster in the NFL. Detroit's the best, team in the NFL right now, I believe. I'm not disrespecting the Chiefs. I think they're great. But right now, Detroit, they've just been dominating teams. And on that turf, in that building, very tough. I would like to see Philadelphia and Detroit meet up somewhere down the line. That'd be awesome. 503-248-0620. My man, Ryland Trainer, just chimed in. He sent me a picture of what he's listening to in his car right now. And it looks like Tears for Fears, head over heels. He says, hey, this old people music is pretty good. It is. I can't believe it came out in the mid-'80s, but it is good music. And I get that a lot from my daughter, too, where I'll be playing stuff, and she's like, hey, I kind of like that song. Can you turn that up? And that makes me feel good when they say things like that. Because some of the music of today is not what I grew up with. I don't think anyone can debate that. The music you got in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, far superior to the stuff that's coming out today. But I'm down with Tears for Fears. Head Over Heels, I think, is my favorite song I think that's my favorite Tears for Fears song, probably. That's probably the one. All right, Dave Deckard is going to join us coming up at 4:20. I haven't spoken with Dave in a while, and I haven't spoken with him since the season got underway, so I'm going to kind of do a health check. How sometimes you go into the doctor, you do a health check where they just kind of, screen or scan everything just to see where everything's at. I'm going to talk to Dave. I want to get his take on what he saw from Klingon and Sharp, especially Sharp, 33 points, career high, carrying the offense there in the fourth quarter. What about the play of Klingon thus far? Is it surprising him? What's he seeing from Scoot Henderson, Tamani Kamara? And then we'll take a look at the current roster, and we'll try to figure out what Cronin needs to get done between now and the trade deadline. So Dave Deckard will join us at 4:20, and then Michael Holton's in studio at 5:20 for some Holton on Hoops. Can't wait to talk with him, and he'll join me in the studio every week throughout the course of the season. But it'll be nice to get his take on what he saw in that game on Wednesday night with the two youngsters going off. Klingon was awesome. So was Sharp. Sharp was big time. His veteran teammates were looking for him down the stretch because he had the hot hand, and he was doing it from outside. He was attacking off the bounce. He looked nice. All right, we'll keep things rolling. If you're going to watch the fight, what's your take on Tyson Paul? I'd love to hear from you. 503-248-0620. You got the Rip City Drive. All right, 4 o'clock chat here. The Trailblazers are in the middle of 3 days off after back-to-back wins over the Timberwolves. They host the Hawks Sunday afternoon at Moda Center. Our coverage starts at 1. Blazers Game Day with Chris Burkhardt. Tip-off at 3 on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio, presented by Coors Light. Dave Deckard of Blazers Edge is going to join me coming up at 4:20. Michael Holton on Hoops in studio at 5:20. Number 1, Oregon will play at Wisconsin tomorrow, 4:30 kick on NBC. The Ducks are a 14-point favorite. Here's Coach Dan Lanning talking about that Wisconsin defensive front.
Again, a lot of their production from their defense, it's hand in hand. It works together. Their coverage allows them to get pressure up front, and they have some guys that do really good and pick games up front.
With a win, Oregon will be 11-0 for only the second time in school history, and they'll secure a spot in the Big Ten title game. Oregon State's at Air Force, kickoff at 12:30, pregame 10:30 on your home of the Beavs, 1190 KX. Mike Tyson and Jake Paul will fight tonight at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Coverage on Netflix will start at 5. All right, college football on Saturday, really loving this playoff expansion and what it's giving us in terms of games to have interest in. At 9 o'clock, you've got number 2 Ohio State at Northwestern. The Buckeyes right now, obviously one of the teams vying for one of the 12 playoff spots. Also at 9, number 3 Texas is at Arkansas. And the weird part about the Longhorns, I don't doubt that they're a good football team, and I know that they're really strong at the line of scrimmage, especially their offensive line. But they haven't beaten anyone all year. Their best win so far this year is at Vandy. So I'm hoping they lose at A&M, and then they have no case to be in the playoff. I hate Texas. Screw Texas. I don't care about Steve Sarkisian or any of the nonsense going on down there. It's a very good program, and they got a lot of talent, but so far this year they got nothing. Nothing. Also at 9, Utah is at number 17, Colorado. We talked to Brandon Krisztal. He is going to be at the game tomorrow. His Heisman vote will go to Travis Hunter, and it's not even close. They're favored by 13. Colorado right now, they control their destiny for the Big 12 title game. They finish up against Utah. They're at Kansas on the 23rd, and then they're home against Oklahoma State. So their last 3 games, they will be favored, although Kansas is playing better football right now, and they're going to be at BYU tomorrow. So for Colorado, it's very simple. Win out, and you're in the Big 12 title game and have a great chance to get into the college football playoff. So, again, our morning kicks off with multiple games. Don't forget about Clemson at Pittsburgh. Both those teams trying to wedge their way into the ACC title game and then have a chance to get into the playoff. So right now at 9 o'clock tomorrow, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 games with playoff implications. Now, as you move throughout the rest of the day, and that's just 4 of many. 12:30 on CBS, you've got number 4 Penn State at Purdue. Penn State's another one of those teams like Texas that I think is a bit fraudulent right now. Of all the teams in the top 10, I think Penn State's the biggest fraud. In their biggest game, they got skunked at home by Ohio State, and I'm still looking for a good win for them. But the problem is they only got 1 loss. They're probably going to finish with 1 loss, and then they'll be one of those teams out of the Big Ten to get into the playoff. Also at 12:30, Virginia is at number 8, Notre Dame. The Irish, with 1 loss, clearly have a pathway to the playoff. At 4 o'clock on ESPN, Arizona State 7-2 at Kansas State 7-2. Both those teams are still alive, and they have a pathway to the Big 12 title game, which obviously would give them a pathway to the playoff. Number 13, Boise State also kicks off at 4. They're at San Jose State. The Broncos right now 8-1, and their only loss coming at Oregon, a game they nearly won. Boise State is in prime position right now to make the playoff, and they're favored by 14 points. Number 1, Oregon will be at Wisconsin at 4:30. The Ducks, I think their situation is pretty well set. Even if they lose the game tomorrow, they'll still be in the Big Ten title game. But I would expect them to win, finish the season unbeaten, and then play either Ohio State or Indiana. The great thing about Oregon is they're going to get to the Big Ten title game, just whatever it takes to win that game. And then get the bye in the first round is what's important. The biggest game tomorrow will be Tennessee and Georgia. Between the hedges. Number 7, Tennessee at number 12, Georgia. Both teams obviously alive for the playoff. The Bulldogs, if they win out, they'll be in. If they win out, they'll be in. And for Tennessee, tomorrow's going to be a big game for them. If the Vols can win tomorrow, which I don't expect to happen, but if they can win, they'll be in a prime position. At 4:45 on the SEC Network, Texas A&M at 7-2, and they've got a meeting coming up with Texas. They're ranked 15th. They're still alive for the playoff. They'll be in action tomorrow. Iowa State takes on Cincinnati. The Cyclones still have a shot to get to the Big 12 title game. And then you've got Kansas at BYU at 7:15 on ESPN. The Cougars right now unbeaten and in prime control of the Big 12 and obviously in a great position to get to the playoff. The question is with BYU, if they were to lose a game or if they go unbeaten and get into the Big 12 title game and let's say they lose that game to Colorado, are they still in the playoff? I'm anxious to see how the committee's going to handle all of that. Very anxious because we don't know. But again, my whole point being 20 teams or so still alive for the playoff with 15 games tomorrow that have playoff implications, and I think that's great. Now, in the NFL, we got some big games. Bills and Chiefs Sunday. It's going to be the prime game on CBS. Jim Nantz and Tony Romo will be there. It's a 125 kick, and Andy Reid was talking about, being undefeated, competing for a championship. Let's take a listen.
You bust your butt, and you maximize all you can do with the time that you have to get better and to know the information that's in front of you. And so then you don't have to worry about all that other stuff. You maximize it out, then you get to a point where you go, all right, this is as much as I can do. I'm going to just go out and do it. And so it relieves some of that, we're 9-0, we're, whatever. I mean, it's just 3 Super Bowl, all that crap. You got to do the work to get the result. And then sometimes that doesn't happen. But, so why worry about all that? That's stuff you can't control. The thing you control is what I'm talking about here. It's kind of a neat thing to watch, and that's what the guys have been doing. And we'll see. We'll just see how it goes. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, and nobody does really. And so, you go play.
All right, so Chiefs, Bills, 125 on CBS. Right now, Buffalo is favored by 2. They get the host of Chiefs. They have been victimized by Kansas City in the postseason of late. The question is, can Buffalo get over in this game? Is Josh Allen and his crew going to be good enough to do what it takes, the little things, to be able to win that game? Now, for Kansas City, I don't think being unbeaten is their number one priority. They're trying to win 3 straight Super Bowls, but Reid did talk about that.
You get so engulfed in trying to do well. It's like Alex was as a student, straight A's. I mean, he busted his butt to no, this is true. You bust there's a good analogy. You bust your butt and you maximize all you can do with the time that you have to get better and to know the information that's in front of you.
Yeah. Yeah, just keep yourself healthy, try to fine-tune and get yourself in a position to three-peat. That's what it comes down to. I'm looking forward to that game. The other big game is the Steelers and Ravens from Pittsburgh, and the winner's going to have the top spot in the AFC North. Pittsburgh's been, terrific running the football, playing defense, and their offense has seen an uptick over the last 3 games since they moved to Russell Wilson at quarterback. They've gotten the deep pass back in their offense, and it's opened things up for the run game. Lamar Jackson, he and Derrick Henry are virtually unstoppable. Their offense is great. Their run defense is number 1 in the NFL, but the problem is their pass defense sucks. Here's Lamar Jackson talking about the Steelers.
I don't know what it is, man. It's just that I believe that rival atmosphere. I believe last year we supposed to have them, but things just didn't go our way. The football guys wasn't on our side. But it's a whole nother year. It's a new year. I'm looking forward to the game.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. It's probably the best rivalry in the NFL right now. And I've talked to players who have been a part of that. Lo Neal told me that of all the games he played, when he played in that game, the Steelers and Ravens, that there was a certain physicality that you just didn't experience anywhere else. the physicality of the game. Like when you play in that game, you don't feel the same coming out of that game that you do in other games because of the way those two teams play, the two franchises. Two of the toughest, most physical franchises in all of football. But it's great because we all thought going into the year that the division would come down to Baltimore and Cincinnati. Well, Cincinnati struggled because they can't stop on defense, even though Joe Burrow's playing great football, and the Steelers are right there at 7-2. And Mike Tomlin has got his team in position like he normally does each and every year. Such a great organization. And I've got respect for the Ravens, too. That's going to be a great football game. Love the Steelers +3 at home against the Ravens. And if Pittsburgh wins that game, they're going to be in prime position to win the division. They've got to win that game because they need a split with Baltimore. The Steelers' final 8 games are ridiculously hard. 6 games, all in division. They have not played a divisional game yet. And the other 2 are Kansas City and Philadelphia. So they have to win that game tomorrow. If Baltimore wins that game, they will win the AFC North because Pittsburgh is going to incur more losses before it's all said and done. So the 2 biggest games, Ravens at Steelers, Chiefs at the Bills, and Sunday Night Football is fascinating. Bengals and Chargers with 2 of the best quarterbacks in Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow. The Bengals right now, coming off that brutal loss at Baltimore by a point last Thursday, are taking on the Chargers. LA sitting there at 6-3. They have not even come close to playing their best ball, but you're starting to see the makings of what Jim Harbaugh is creating there. And I'm a big believer in that relationship between coach and quarterback. Jim Harbaugh he knows how to win. And for the Bengals, if they win that game, they'll keep themselves in a position. They're battling for the 7th and final playoff spot that looks to be coming down to Denver, who's in control of that spot right now, Indianapolis, and Cincinnati. And Denver and Cincinnati will play later in the year. So it's a big game for Cincy. If they drop it and go to 4-7, it's going to be very difficult for them to make the postseason. If they pull off the upset, the Chargers are a small favorite, then they're going to come out of the game with a good opportunity to get back in the playoff mix. And they just looked dead a couple of weeks ago when they got routed by Philadelphia. So those are the big games in the NFL. But love it. Love the Chiefs and Bills because you know those 2 teams are going to match up again come postseason time. And when you have legends going head-to-head in games like this, you got to watch Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. But the Steelers and Ravens, I think, right now, probably best rivalry in all of football. Okay, when we come back, we'll do the health check on the Trailblazers. A lot of different things to touch on with Dave Deckard. We'll get his thoughts on Scoot, on the play of Klingon and Sharp that we saw on Wednesday night, and what are the likely maneuvers or what would make sense for Joe Cronin between now and the trade deadline that's coming up next.
Blocked by Klingon again. Picked up off the window. 3-on-2 for the Blazers. Avdi at a bend. Up and under. Banks it in. Back to Grant. 10 seconds to shoot. Has it straight away. Lost his dribble. Gets it back. Now he drives. Turns. 5 to shoot. Works into the lane. Stops. Fades. Short. Shaden Sharp with a putback. Cocked it back and slammed it down. My goodness. Woo! 91-83. He read it perfectly.
All right, joining us right now is the man behind BlazersEdge.com, my good friend Dave Deckard, who's back. Dave, a long time no chat, man. It's good to have you back on the show.
Well, you picked a good week. We got a winning streak to talk about.
I know, it's so great. You know, I had someone reach out to me after the game on Wednesday, and they just simply said that was Rip City, that game. And I think he was right, Dave. The energy in the building, the way the young guys really scrapped, it was fun, and I hope it was a glimpse into the future. How much do you enjoy watching it?
It was really enjoyable, if nothing else, because it was a stark relief, for instance, from the Memphis game 2 games prior, when the Blazers got housed and just didn't show any effort. Remember, Chauncey Billups had some choice words after that game, and it appeared to light them up a little bit. It's hard to sustain emotion like that in the NBA, though. Jack Ramsey always used to say this, that you can get pumped up for a game, but it's hard to get pumped up for a season. You have to have the fundamentals down and have consistency in your effort, and we'll see if the Blazers can develop that.
All right. What about Shaden Sharp? Career high 33 points. He really carried the team offensively in the fourth. What'd you see in him that night?
Well, that was actually really nice for a couple of reasons. First of all, good to see him back. But second of all, since he's come back, his confidence in his own shot has been superb. And you don't always expect that, having had so long of a layoff, so much injury work. You expect some, shakedown cruising a little bit where he gets used to playing. None of that was Shaden, at least on offense, that he knew the shots he was supposed to take. He knew when the team needed him, and he stepped up. For a guy who has not played most of the last season and a half, that was really impressive.
I agree with that 100%. And the other thing that was nice, too, in that game, I mean, Shaden was really engaged on the defensive end, too.
Yes, and we should point out that certain configurations of the Blazers make that easier. In other words, the Blazers are just beginning to develop lineups where they make each other look good defensively. Sharp benefited a little bit from that, but the guy who really benefited from that on Wednesday night was Donovan Klingon. His perimeter defenders were deflecting the original dribble, like when the opponent had the ball up top. They would cause the opponent to take an extra dribble or to divert a little bit because they stayed in front of their man. That allowed Klingon to stay home, read where the drive was coming, and come in for the help block or the intimidation, turn around, get the rebound, and the Blazers ready to go. We haven't seen that in a long time in Portland. Usually the perimeter offensive player gets a step and a half free before the center even gets to react. You see the difference that makes, and it certainly made Portland center look good that night.
Boy, that's a great point. Now, Donovan Klingon, I mean, he was awesome. 31 minutes, 17 points, 12 boards, and 8 blocks. Did his play, or has his play so far this year surprised you?
Moderately, but I would say that, again, that you have to credit the whole team for making Donovan look good. He's not doing that by himself. He has limited speed a little bit. His athleticism is okay. I think there are holes in his game still, but when put in the right situation, he looks great. If you're in his wheelhouse, you're in trouble. Rudy Gobert is slow, lane bound, allowed him to be exactly where he needed to be. Again, Minnesota drivers a little bit slow, being hounded by Portland defenders, allowed Klingon to tee up against them. He looked great. There's a difference between that and projecting him starting against frontline NBA offenses where, for instance, opposing centers can take him out to the three-point line. That's going to look much different. But for where he's been and for where he is now, he's doing great, and hopefully he can start to develop the rest.
So teams that you would envision giving Klingon trouble this year would be like Denver or Oklahoma City, teams like that can pull him out away from the basket?
Yeah, I mean, Denver's going to give anybody trouble. I mean, nobody guards Jokic, right?
Yeah.
But I think Klingon is fine if he's in his 15 to 18 minutes a game in a targeted matchup against mostly second units or fatigued first units. As long as the other guys are slow and kind of in the lane, he's going to be fine. But if you project him and say, I want him to start right now, then you got to look at opposing fives who can shoot the three or drag him out to 20 feet. How is he going to recover to the lane for those blocks? How is he going to get the rebounds? And by the way, he looks okay rebounding, but really as percentage-wise, he's getting about 1/5 of the rebounds available, which is exactly he's 1/5 of the players on the floor. He's not like excelling rebounding even as it is. So you have to put him in situations where he's going to succeed still, and he will look really good. I fear for him yet in other situations.
Okay, that makes sense. We're talking with Dave Deckard, BlazersEdge.com here on the Rip City Drive. Tamani Kamara had a solid all-around game on Wednesday. What do you think about his play so far this year?
He is absolutely the guy that you should quietly circle as the guy to be proud of. I mean, seriously, he's come up through the system slowly. He got no minutes, and then he got some minutes, and now he's a starter. And what he's doing, first of all, his defense shows up. He's always in front of his man. His feet and hands are in the right place. He's totally disruptive. But the thing that's made him a starter and able to stay on the court is that now look at his three-point shot. He doesn't hesitate. He simply releases it, and it looks as pure as anybody's out there. That is the wrinkle he needed to develop. Now, he's not going to be a one-on-one scorer. He's not going to pull up like Anthony Simons and shoot one off the dribble. But the Blazers don't need that. He is a weak-side, catch-and-shoot, three-point shooter that looks dangerous right now. That's one of the elements they've been missing, and it's great that he has developed that.
All right, Dave, I would say Blazer fans, at least the ones I hear from, are still a little bit anxious about Scoot Henderson. What are you seeing from him so far this year?
It's kind of the same thing, except a little more advanced as Donovan Klingon. When Scoot is in a position where he can go one-on-one and he has a driving lane open, he looks really good because he's getting to the cup. He's not finishing all the time yet. I think that will come, but he's drawing more fouls, and he's certainly putting pressure on the defense. And you see he's getting more clear and open passes, even lobs sometimes off the pick and roll, because he's going against one-on-one defense, and he's learned how to use his athleticism in his first step. That is fantastic. When you get guards that can stay in front of him, can get their hand in his dribble, or when people send extra men yet to defend him, he still doesn't look great, and his outside shot has not developed that much to ease that pressure. So again, it's one of those things where if you put him in the right situation against the second unit or the right first unit, he's going to look good. If you envision him starting and playing 32 to 35 minutes a game every night against all opponents, that's probably not going to work yet.
All right, I want to ask you about Delano Ben. You know, when the Blazers acquired him last year, I didn't even know who he was. And then he was putting up some decent numbers at the end of last year. And I thought, well, of course he's going to do that because he's getting, you know, a high usage and he's playing big minutes. But I didn't really know what he was. But I'm watching him again this year. And with his size and the way he can kind of slither around the floor, he appears to be more than just a bench-type guy in the NBA. What do you think about Delano?
Okay, two exciting things about his game so far. Forget the scoring. We knew he had that, and he has a height advantage that makes that easier. As much as he scores and you can celebrate that, that's fine, but that's expected. It's what he does. What has he developed this year so far? His passing and his court vision look way better now than they did last year, probably in part because he's got better players around him to pass to.
Yeah.
But I did not know he had that passing game. The other thing is he's at least generating steals on defense, and sometimes his defense looks really good. That is also a wrinkle that I don't think it's fully developed yet or shown yet. And if he can play a little defense and pass, in addition to that scoring that he has, that's a legitimate point guard right there. And I think it's possible, if this keeps going, that you can make an argument that he should be the second point guard on this team. Which brings up the elephant in the room. Which one of the other players, Anthony Simons or Scoot Henderson, is going to be the first point guard, and what do you do with the one you're not using? That might be an edge if Banton keeps playing well to pry open a possible trade for the Blazers.
Yeah, that's a great question, isn't it? Okay, what about Denny Avdia? What do you think about him so far?
Mixed. I mean, Look, I like what everybody likes, that he's quick down the floor, that he sets up plays. He's always pushing. I love that about him. I also like his defense. I don't think he's quite as good as Kamara, but he's plenty good. And by the way, together, those two make a really nice pair of wings. I really think that Kamara and Avdia could be kind of the fourth and fifth guys for a contending team someday. So bravo for the Blazers for getting that. But Denny's drives are bad right now, and his shot isn't falling either, which means it's hard to keep him out there, especially when Shaedon Sharpe has come back. Now, Shaedon doesn't play defense as well as Denny, but there's a reason I think that Denny got sent to the second unit, because the Blazers need offensive scoring power. That's really what they're lacking. And Denny's not providing that right now, and that's an issue.
Yeah, the three-point shooting for this current roster construction, like it's going to be an issue for him all year, isn't it?
Likely. I mean, this is why Kamara is so nice. And this is why, if you're at all concerned about their near future, why you have to think twice about trading Jeremy Grant, because he's one of the players who can either catch and shoot a three or create his own three. And if the Blazers lose that and don't replace it, oh boy, now all of a sudden you're crowding the middle if you're the defense. Now Scoot Henderson and Banton can't drive as easily and dish out, and the whole offense stalls. So, yeah, the Blazers definitely need to either develop or acquire more three-point shooting in the long run.
All right, Dave, we know the Blazers are focused on talent acquisition and player development. Robert Williams has looked really good so far. I can't help but wonder if a contender like OKC or someone like that that's had injuries might inquire real soon about Robert Williams.
Yeah, I mean, Robert Williams is a definite candidate. I think Grant will be welcome on any contender. I think Anthony Simons could be welcome in a lot of places simply because of his versatility. He can probably come off the bench for a good team. He can start, obviously, for anyone. He can play either guard spot. So I think those three are the main ones. I think DeAndre Ayton could be moved, but he's a little more specialized. And I think there are fewer teams who would be interested in his kind of center play. So, I mean, look at Williams. He can go anywhere. Look at Grant. If they decide to move him, he can go to any contender. And Anthony Simons, like I said, just the instant offense. I think there's a team or two out there who would like that.
But when do they need to make a decision about the Anthony Simons, Scoot Henderson conundrum?
Well, I mean, they have all season at minimum. They have both under contract. They're not going to win. If they feel like they want to keep them both through the season, there's absolutely no problem with that. They're under the luxury tax, too. Their contracts are reasonable. There's no reason to trade anybody off this team immediately. But that also means there's ultimate flexibility for them to trade anybody they want, anytime they want, because there's no particular reason to keep them. It's not like they're going to the playoffs, right? So the Blazers have ultimate flexibility, ultimate luxury. If a good deal comes up, they should pull the trigger. If no good deal comes up, they don't have to move anybody. It's kind of a nice calm before the storm in that way on the trade front.
Okay, you've probably gotten this too over the last couple of days like I have, but what do you say to those who worry that with the current players that they have, that they might win too many games to take them out of prime position to get Cooper Flagg?
Nah, first of all, that's not going to happen. I mean, think back 3 games ago to Memphis. Come on.
Exactly.
Also, yeah, look at the record. But the other thing is, look, it's lottery luck at this point. And you want a top 2 pick ideally in this because Ace, Bailey or whatever his name is the other guy that's making a lot of waves, at least offensively. Yeah. So it's a deep draft and top 2 might be superstars. So you hope for that, but there's no way you can plan for that or play that way. You know, look at teams like Washington who have been bad forever, or Houston who was in the lottery for years. And yes, they've rebuilt, but not with prime picks like that. There's no guarantee you're going to get one.
Yeah, okay.
Here's the thing. I think you need to keep that winning culture going with the team, though, even though they're losing. You need players who are going to be able to teach these young guys where to be, how to play. And it can't be just the coaches. They've got to see it on the floor. So you can't intentionally trade away or submarine the season in order to get lottery luck. When that lottery player is going to join a team that absolutely stinks, it'll still be a 4 or 5 years window before that lottery player has any effect then.
Yeah. Do you think Billups makes it through the year?
Well, I mean, after the Memphis game, you would have said no. Right now, you would say yes. And I think that's exactly the way it's going to go. The bigger question is, I think, does it matter? Is it okay if Chauncey makes it through the year? I think so. Is it okay if they decide to move on from him for whatever reason? Sure. Either way, it's going to be okay. It's not going to make or break the season, and maybe we should fuss a little bit less about that.
I agree. I agree with you. All right, one last question. So what do you think Cronin's like what would be a good plan? What's he trying to accomplish between now and the deadline?
Look, if it's me, and I'm just spitballing here, if it's me, I look to see if there are any trades out there that I think can bring me either young players or future assets like draft picks. And I look to trade one of my 4 tradable players, if not 2. I would not dump them all just for cap space. I think that's ridiculous, or just to clear space for the youngsters. Yeah. You can't do that. You're going to hamstring everybody. Yep. But look, I'm looking for that trade that advantages me. And I know I have the luxury of waiting for it. I don't have to make it right now. So I'm saying, who's going to give me what for whom? And if I get a sweet deal, I make it. If not, I kind of ride it out, let this young team develop, figure I'm going to grow in the next draft anyway, and then look to make moves over the summer around that hopefully premium player that I get then.
I like it when you spitball, Dave. Oh, by the way, do we have an official date for Blazers Edge Night?
We do. And in fact, you can go to blazersedge.com and you can see it right down below the pictures, right down below the cover. Guess what happened? We always get value games because it's cheaper for people to buy tickets for those for kids, right?
Yes.
And guess what value game we got this year before the season even started?
What's
the
that?
Cleveland Cavaliers.
Oh,
only
good.
the best team in the league. So here's what you can do. Go to blazersedge.com, scroll down just a bit, see the Blazers Edge Night announcement. You click through the link in that post, and it takes you directly to the website that the Blazers set up. You buy tickets from the Blazers, but instead of going to you, they go to kids. They go into a pool that's distributed to kids around the area who get to see, in many cases, their first and only Blazers game ever. They're going to get to see Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and the Cleveland Cavaliers in March, which is absolutely wonderful. We have over 1,000, about 1,200 tickets left available. So if you could buy 1 or 2 and donate them, we would love to get kids set up for that.
That's awesome. All right, Dave Deckard, blazersedge.com. Dave, I appreciate the time, buddy. Great to talk ball with you. We'll catch up again real soon. And I guess next up is Atlanta before they take off on the 5-game road trip. So we'll see if they can keep the winning streak going on Sunday.
Yeah, well, the thing you want to watch quickly is the NBA Cup games, right? Now,
Yes.
if they beat Houston next Friday, that's 2-0, and then you're lining up on Sacramento at home. What if the Blazers made it to the NBA Cup? Oddly enough, I mean, that would be a feather in their cap.
It
So
would be.
those are the games I'm watching.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, I'm on it. Sounds great, Dave. We appreciate it, buddy. Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks so much. You too.
I love Dave. Dave Deckard, blazersedge.com, the man behind the site right there. Okay, I've got some things to chew on now. All right, so there you go. So, Blazer fans, just remember back to Memphis on Sunday, right? Winning too many games is not going to be the issue for this group, all right? They're going to be in fine position to get a good draft pick. So we continue to focus on development. That's why it's so exciting to see players like Tamani and Klingon and Sharp, really showcase what they can do. And we need to pray, and I emphasize the word pray, we need to pray that Scoot Henderson can continue to move forward and develop. They need those guys to cash to make this turnaround as smooth as possible. All right, Michael Holton, you're going to join me in studio at 5:20, a little Holton on hoops. Appreciate your time on this Friday. We got Tyson and Paul coming up. I think all the undercard stuff, I think, gets underway here at the top of the hour at 5, but I wouldn't expect the Tyson-Paul fight to go off until 7 or so, which is fine because I've got traffic to deal with, and I don't want to miss, hopefully, Tyson beating the crap out of that loudmouth. The guy's a clown. I want Tyson to kick his ass. That's why I want the fight to be real. If the fight's real, Tyson will kill him. If it's a setup and it's some type of sideshow, then who knows what's going to happen. I don't like the way he disrespected Tyson yesterday either. Oh, I like the way Tyson B-slapped him right there at the weigh-in, which was awesome. Look, I know that Tyson has reinvented himself, but the one thing that Paul needs to keep in mind, he is still crazy, all right? there's still a demon that lives inside of that man. And that's what makes him very watchable even at 58 years old, because you don't know. You think you know, but you don't know. And my Nana used to always tell me, like, there's no cure for crazy. I think she was talking more about girls when she said that, but I think it applies to Tyson too. There's no cure for crazy. And Michael Holton in studio at 520. Well, Dave Deckard was high on Tamani Kamara and said we should celebrate his development the way he's playing. And I agree. You know, the guarding position, especially against Memphis, or in that 3-game losing streak before they took on Minnesota in back-to-back games, their initial guarding position was very poor. But Tamani Kamara is always in good position. And now his offensive game is coming around much better from the three-point line. He's just terrific. And you put him in the starting lineup and look at what he does, man. He's a dog. He's a Chauncey Billups-type player. Love what I'm seeing from him. And the Blazers are in a good spot right now. They don't have to rush and do anything. Cronin can continue to remain patient. And then when the right offer comes along for one of the guys that they would consider moving, then he can execute the deal. But he doesn't have to rush and do anything today or tomorrow or before the deadline. I mean, ideally, you'd love to be able to secure another pick for the upcoming lottery, but that's going to be tough to do. I still think Oklahoma City, with the injuries they've got up front, Chet Holmgren with the fractured hip, and then you've got Hartenstein who's still out. Like, they are a team that could use someone like Robert Williams. And they've got $1 billion draft picks to work with. So maybe Cronin can get something done. We'll see. We'll see how things shake out. But, man, Robert Williams has looked good. He's looked real good. And you could see it. I think it was in that first game on Tuesday when he was attacking the rim like a crazed animal. He was just ferocious. But he had one play where he hopped up and threw it down. And as he was coming back down the floor, he kind of had one of those fist pumps. And to me, that was like one of those moments where he's like, oh, yeah, I still got it. And you forget that with athletes sometimes when they go through, certain injuries and an extended rehab. And it's always tough to go through a long rehab. But those guys, they need that first game back where they're able to showcase and then have that confidence like, oh, my body's still good. We're good. I'm recuperated. I can still do the things I want to do. And I love seeing that. So Robert Williams, I could see how a contender would look around and be like, oh, we could use that guy. I mean, what a difference maker he is. He's tough. He can get up and down the floor. Great on the offensive glass. Toughness. He's smart. He's been a part of a winning organization that's competed at a high level in Boston. I just really like him, and I could see how a contending team would look at him and be like, oh, yeah, give me some of that. Same would go for, Jeremy Grant. But the problem is they don't have a lot of three-point shooters right now. So will the Lakers have interest? Someone's going to have interest in Jeremy Grant because he brings a lot of value. He can defend. He can shoot the three. He can create his own three, the catch and shoot. He's still got that unique move where you can, throw the cross-court pass to Jeremy. He'll catch the ball above his head, and he just goes straight up with the shot. There's no reset or anything that needs to be done. He just goes straight up with the shot. It's one of the coolest things I've seen in terms of his moves. All right, let's bring in my man, Brendan Slaughter. What's up, B?
What's going on, Chad? Good to talk with you again, my man.
Good to see you.
I'm curious your thoughts on Robert Williams. You mentioned it there. Too much to say he could net a first-round pick? Do you think you're looking more at double seconds for him, or do you think there's a world where he could net a first-round pick? Because that would be pretty darn ideal.
Yeah, if you're desperate enough. I just keep looking at Oklahoma City. They got a ton of picks, and they need help in the middle right now.
A treasure trove of picks. I mean, Sam Presti can let any of those picks go anytime. I mean, Chad, they got roster constraints, man. He ain't going to be able to pick all these picks and keep them on the roster, So eventually, Oklahoma City's going to have to make a decision. So that's a good point.
I like him. I like Robert Williams. He looked good on Tuesday. He's fine. He didn't play on Wednesday. I think they were just being cautious with the second of a back-to-back. But I like him. All right, we'll see how things shake out. We'll see how it shakes out. All right, the fight tonight, and we got Paul and Tyson, and I'm just anxious to see what happens. For me, the big question is the fight legit? If it's legit and it's not some type of sideshow or pre-planned whatever they got going on out there, then Tyson should be able to punish him, even at 58 years old. I just refuse to believe that some type of YouTube creation is going to be the same or has any idea of what he's getting in the ring with Mike Tyson, because he is Mike Tyson, and he's still got that demon inside of him. I mean, he's transformed and done so many great things, but, even with George Foreman late in his career, he can still have the heavy punch, right? I don't know. I'm fascinated to see how it shakes out. My guess is that fight will go probably around 7:30, somewhere in that area, and it's all going to be on Netflix. It's going to be great. and there's going to be, I think, over 200 million people watching it. It's going to be like one of the biggest streamed fighting events maybe of all time. It's big time. A lot of people are going to be able to tune in and watch Mike take on Jake Paul. I don't like the way he's disrespecting Mike like that either. So I guess I'm still holding on to that, Iron Mike from my younger days, but I have to watch it. And I'm sure like a lot of you guys, like you don't know exactly how it's going to go down, but you got to check in to see what's going to happen. Is it legit? What's Mike look like? Is he going to be able to land the big punch? How's it going to go down? And those are all the things that are fascinating to me. So we shall wait and see. But yeah, the boxing, I just saw some Hagler and Hearns highlights on, Twitter. Like when I was growing up, back in the day when I was like, I remember being like elementary school and even in junior high, like they didn't even have the rights to show the highlights of the big fights the next morning on the news. So like on the Today Show and stuff, they'd show like pictures from the fight, like Sugar Ray and Hagler. You would see like still photos, and then everyone would be talking about it at school. And then you had the legendary Tyson Holyfield fights, which are great. And then Buster Douglas, he beats Tyson and then gets fat, and then Holyfield kicked his ass, knocked him out in 3 rounds. All right, 5:20. Michael Holton's going to be in studio for Holton on Hoops, so we'll get a chance to talk with him. You can reach out to me on social at Chad and Rip City. You can also call at 503-248-0620. Appreciate your time as we get ready for the weekend. Big weekend of football, great games in college and the NFL. And this is what's great, man. Second week in November, we have multiple games with playoff implications. You got to love it. All right, now 5 o'clock, Chad here. The Trailblazers are in the middle of 3 days off after their 2 wins over Minnesota. They'll be back in action Sunday to host the Hawks at Moda Center. Our coverage will start at 1 with Blazers Game Day. Chris Burkhardt. Tip-off at 3. It's here on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rib City Radio. Michael Holton will join me in studio for Holton on Hoops coming up at 5:20. Checking the NBA scoreboard. Lakers are in San Antonio to meet the Spurs right now. LeBron James against Victor Wembanyama. And Wemby has 9 points early. The Spurs are up by 10, 18-8. College football tomorrow. Number 1 Oregon will be at Wisconsin, 4:30 on NBC. The Ducks favored by 14. With a win, they'll be 11-0 for only the second time in school history and secure a spot in the Big Ten title game. Oregon State travels to Colorado Springs. They'll meet Air Force. 12:30 kick. Pregame at 10:30 on your home of the Beavs, 1190 KX. Mike Tyson and Jake Paul scheduled to meet tonight down in Arlington, Texas. It's going to be on Netflix. Coverage starts now. All right, I wanted to make mention of this for those of you who are into this type of thing. I think it was Brian Bergman, one of my good friends who listens. He reached out to let me know this is going down. Bill Simmons, who is from The Ringer, you know him, he covers basketball, big basketball fan. He's also in the movie-making biz. He's got a documentary coming out, and it's going to be on Yacht Rock, and it's going to debut. This is part of their Music Box series, and this is going to be focused in on Yacht Rock. It's going to come out on November 29th, which is 2 weeks from today, and I'm pretty excited about this because it's going to focus in on the emergence and popularity of the West Coast soft rock pop culture, which was epitomized by musical artists such as Christopher Cross, Michael McDonald, Kenny Loggins, Steely Dan, and Toto, and they're going to have a chance to talk to many different artists across the genre. And some of those will be Kenny Loggins, Christopher Cross, Michael McDonald, Steely Dan, the Doobies, Steve Porcaro, who is part of Toto, along with Steve Lukather and David Page, all from the same band and were great studio musicians. Prince Paul from De La Soul, Brian Robert Jones, Thundercat, Mac DeMarco. There's going to be a whole bunch. The only thing that troubles me is that Jay Graydon, who was a big-time studio musician and producer and is still active in the biz. I don't see him listed as credits, and he's got more knowledge and information on that genre than anybody. But this is going to be pretty awesome. And I love these documentaries that focus in on, the music biz. Just like the documentary we got on The Greatest Night in Pop. Love that. So a lot of things to look forward to. Pumped. So that's coming out 2 weeks from tonight on HBO. Music Box, Yacht Rock, a documentary. Let's go out to the phones. My man Mitch in Jersey is chiming in. Mitch, my friend, what's going on? What's on your mind?
How's it going, buddy? How's everything?
Fabulous. How about you?
Good. Pretty good. Might go back to casual. It's getting a little too much. Cost of living, etc.
Hey, Mitch, do me a favor. Your phone is crackling, so disconnect and then call back because I want to get you on the show. But the crackling is going to drive me crazy. So disconnect and then call back, and I'll put you right back on. Is that like a Jersey thing, Mitch? They got bad phones out there?
The Jerseys.
The Jerseys. Yeah, it's pretty much every cell phone. The one thing is like my phone can do everything, but for some reason, the one thing it was intended to do, it doesn't do very well. Every time I call someone, like the drop call or depending on where you're at, on I-5, it always happens like right around Delta Park and Hazeldale. Probably because those are two more white, trashy type areas. But I should be able to be in the I-5 corridor and not have an issue. Now, Mitch, call back. Come on, Mitch.
While we're waiting for Mitch, Chad, what do you think of the theory that, the cell phone companies about, 10, 15 years ago are like, yeah, cell service is good enough. We don't need to improve it. We can just shut it down. Because I feel like it literally has been this way for a long, places you drop calls as a kid. You still drop calls. You know what I mean? You wouldn't think there'd be anything relating to service with all the things our phones can do now.
Yeah, but is that a theory? I've never heard that theory. Is that a theory that's out there about cell companies?
I believe I got to give credit to old Justin Myers for that theory, but he always was just like, it seems like they shut it down, man, and it's there could be something to that. Mitch is back on now.
Hey, Mitch, welcome back, buddy. And the crackling's gone. Nice work.
You know, my daughter gets me these, what do you call them, pods.
Yes.
You know, you put the Bluetooth. It's the worst. I don't understand this technology. Oh, God. Sometimes, you know, maybe I should leave my phone my next door neighbor and just shout.
Yeah, I can't do it. The pods aren't working, Mitch. The crackling's still there. I thought it was clear at first, but it's not. And, Mitch, I know that you want to talk about L.A. sports, and I'm here for you. Don't be calling the show with the pods in. Come on, Mitch. That's okay. Oh, I see. Okay. Michael Holton is downstairs. He can't get in the doors into the building. What time do they lock the doors? All right. Help is on the way. Great. I left it. This is what I did for Michael Holton. So we don't have what do you call those people? We don't have like a front desk attendant. We don't have like a secretary or anything like that. So when you come to the building, you can't get in unless you have a key card. So what I did is I went out and I left my key card. This is very safe. I left it outside the entrance on the floor that we're on. And I said, here, I took a picture of it and said, hey, the key card, just let yourself in and bring the card with you and then we'll be good to go. Because I didn't want to have to wait. I don't want him standing around the hallway. I'm trying to be respectful to Michael Holton. And so I just get a text from him and he can't get in the front doors at the base of the building. I guess they must lock those up at like 5 o'clock. But I don't know because I'm never trying to get in the building at 5. But so we sent someone down. Brendan is on his way to help Michael. So that's where we're at. And Mitch, I want to bring you on, but you got to drop the earbuds, buddy. All right? You got to drop the earbuds. We can't have the crackling on the air. It's not a good thing. All right, the Ducks are going to be taking on Wisconsin tomorrow. Big game for Oregon for a couple of different reasons. One, they've got a chance to be 11-0 for the second time in school history. The first time, of course, was 2010 when they advanced to the BCS championship game. So that's a big deal, although I don't think it should be the priority right now. But also a win, and this is more important, will secure a spot in the Big Ten title game. That's critical for Oregon. Now, this matchup against Wisconsin, I think earlier in the year we thought it might be a little bit tougher. That's always a tough place to play. It's a good home field advantage. But as the season has played out, Wisconsin's in a bit of a transition right now. They have a good coach in Luke Fickell, but they're struggling on defense. They can't stop the run. They're giving up about 165 yards per game. And obviously Oregon, as the season's gone along, has gotten better, and they run the football very well. And their offensive line continues to get better, both in pass blocking and run blocking. So that's something Oregon should be able to exploit. Now, their pass defense is top 10 in the nation. So I'm anxious to see how the Ducks do. Now, I wouldn't expect Tez Johnson to be available, so Evan Stewart's going to have to do the heavy lifting out there, but it should be a good enough challenge for Oregon. But I think the ultimate focus right now is very simple. Just make sure that you do whatever it takes to win the Big Ten title game and get that bye in the playoff. That's all that matters. That's the most important thing. Here's Dan Lanning sharing some of his thoughts on Wisconsin in the matchup tomorrow.
Expectations with the way he's worked. I mean, it's a really good room, that outside linebacker room. He's certainly a big part of that.
Looking at this 8-game stretch, where do you see the biggest growth maybe on both offense and defense from that first game to now?
Just playing as a team, right? Just uniquely playing as a team. I think that there's been a lot of growth in those moments of having each other's six, right? Having each other's back in moments. I think that's shown up consistently, whether it's the offense bailing out the defense or the defense bailing out the offense or special teams coming with a big play and really focusing on the next play.
That'll at least be a focus of attention, Dan, just this big cleaner in practice so far this week.
Yeah, we had 5 today. We had 13 last Wednesday, so it was cleaner, but it can still be cleaner than it normally than it is.
How's the secondary specifically been handling that issue?
They've been wearing boxing gloves all week. That's helped.
A lot of their defensive production comes from their front seven. Just what stands out about 94 specifically on their front?
Yeah, twitch, right? He's got great twitch. And I think, again, a lot of their production from their defense, it's hand in hand. It works together. Their coverage allows them to get pressure up front. And they have some guys that do really good in pick games up front.
All right. It's pretty simple for Oregon. Just handle your business and win the Big Ten title game and get a bye week. What I love about what the coaching staff has done, one, we've seen improvements in terms of decision-making from Coach Lanning in-game because he's growing in that role, but also the work that he and the staff have done throughout the course of the season to manage the roster to keep guys healthy, but also tinkering with the details to continue to get people up to speed on where they need to be. They've done an elite job, and right now, the unquestioned number one team in the country. I don't think there's a true dominant number one team right now, but Oregon's right there. And everything they want is right there in front of them. And they're going to face either Ohio State or Indiana in the Big Ten title game based on who comes out. But the Ducks right now looking very good. Very impressive. I think that win at Michigan showed me a lot because they went into that game knowing that Michigan, for all their flaws and poor quarterback play, they're really strong at the point of attack, and yet Oregon was able to dominate that game at the line of scrimmage. And they're winning games like that now where it's not about smoke and mirrors or speed or warp speed offense or using the spread. They're just lining up and pushing guys off the ball. And that's how you win championships in college football now. And I think Dan Lanning's done a heck of a job. And the good thing is about having a guy like Dylan Gabriel with his experience is that when you go through those stretches during the course of a game where you have struggles, like maybe against Michigan, where you misfire in a couple of drives, you're not getting the points you want, his steady influence and his ability to protect the football, I think, makes a big difference. And then just the practice habits, making sure you show up early, you put the work in, guys see that, and, I think it spreads to the rest of the team. But they look really good, and I'm excited about their opportunity right now. But again, as great as it is to go unbeaten or to run the table in the regular season, what matters now is being healthy, continuing to focus on details, and then winning the Big Ten title game, whether it's Indiana or the rematch with Ohio State. Because the ultimate goal is to win a national championship. That's what Phil wants. That's what, all you fans want. So you put yourself in the best position to do that. That's not going unbeaten in the regular season, but instead getting that bye so you have to play one extra game. Because the competition in the playoff is going to be so tough, you may have to face Ohio State a third time and then get through Georgia to win a national championship, and that's a lot. I mean, that's a lot to take on. All right, we'll keep things rolling. When we come back, Michael Holton on Hoops. He is in studio. We're going to talk some ball. It's great to see him. And then we'll get ready for the weekend. The coverage for Tyson and Fury has kicked off on Netflix, but I wouldn't expect the main bout to be until about 7 or just after that. So how is Mike Tyson going to look at 58? We're going to find out. I saved the best for last. It's time for Michael Holton, Holton on Hoops. He is in studio with me, and I love this because I just made a cup of an espresso. And he looked over, he goes, "Oh, you got your own thing from the hotel in the studio?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Don't you have an espresso at home?" He goes, "I got all kinds of machines at home."
No, my wife and I were having a conversation about trying to consolidate the type of coffee machines we have at home.
Yeah, you
we
got them
one
all.
for espresso. We got a Keurig. We got a drip coffee machine.
Yeah.
Because I really have been unwilling to spend the coin to get the nice machine that can do all those things.
Yes, I understand that. Were you a big coffee drinker when you were in the league?
Yeah, ironically, my rookie year, Jay Humphreys and I on the Phoenix Suns would drink coffee before the game, and the veterans looked at us like we were out of our mind.
Yeah.
Because coffee consumption before a game, I guess at that time, just kind of wasn't something that somebody did, and I came in the league drinking coffee.
Yeah, that makes sense to me because you get the energy boost, but also you're more alert and more focused. Like I would want a little caffeine before I take the floor just to make sure I'm on top of my game.
Yeah, it just was a thing. I mean, it was available, and I was like, I'm going to sit here and have a cup of coffee and see what these veterans do.
You know, it's funny. When I was a kid, I used to wonder, like, how many jump shots can I put up before my hand breaks? And you found out you actually had to have wrist surgery because you've been putting up too many jumpers.
Yeah, well, that's my description for why I had wrist surgery. Yeah, I just got a bump that grew on my wrist, I don't know, 7-8 months ago, and doctor looked at it and gave it a steroid shot and went down and came back. And I noticed when I play basketball that I couldn't bend my wrist all the way back, or if I go to reach for a ball and my fingers bent back, it hurt. And I said, well, that means you need to do something about it, right? So, yeah, I underwent outpatient wrist surgery yesterday morning. It was successful, and I'm in this soft splint for, I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks. I'll see the doctor in about a week. But the tendon underneath the cyst or the mass was not interrupted or injured.
Awesome.
So I'm 2 weeks away from taking jump shots again.
You know, it's great. I want to know what jump shot percentage is post-surgery because I have a feeling that you're going to be killing guys now.
No, it's kind of like the dream I had. I had a dream that I came back with 4 years of eligibility.
That's so good. And, of course, you did. Many don't know this or maybe don't remember, but you played in a Final Four at UCLA.
Yeah, I played in a championship game. And to put the right frame on the picture, and this is not meant to be self-promoting, but in 1980, Rocket Rod Foster and I started a title game as true freshmen for UCLA against Louisville at Market Square Arena. And at that time, it was the first time in the history of the NCAA that a true freshman backcourt started a title game. That was before the Fab Five, and that was before the era of one and done.
Yeah, that's awesome. Were you nervous before that game? What do you remember about that night going in?
I don't remember being nervous. During the run in the NCAA tournament to get to the finals, there were some spots.
Yeah.
Like, I think in the semis we played, or in the Elite Eight, I think we played Ohio State. Clark Kellogg, Kelvin Ramsey, Herb Williams. I mean, they were really good. And we were playing in one of those big domes, and I was the offense-defense sub guy down the stretch. I had to come in for defense. I mean, that's how Larry Brown utilized me. And I don't remember 8 minutes to go in the game or something, and this never happened in my basketball life. I needed to go to the bathroom. We're in this dome, and I'm sitting next to the coach, and I'm thinking, I don't know what to do. I said, Coach, I got to go to the bathroom. He said, go to the bathroom, right? And so I had to run because of the dome, how far it was to the restroom to get back to play down the stretch of an elimination game in the Elite Eight.
You know, I always heard that certain places, buildings in the NBA, like the old Boston Garden, there were certain places that had great backdrops for shooting. But then when you got in the big domes, like in the tournament, that it could really mess with your shot. Did you find that to be true?
I found it to be true. I mean, indoor basketball is not meant to be played in an outdoor type space. And domes created that space. And it just was, it was unnatural.
Yeah.
But the most unnatural thing about the NCAA tournament was practice being open to the public. All of a sudden, you go to the NCAA tournament, you go to the Elite Eight, you go to the Final Four, and there's 10,000 people at practice. And you're supposed to focus on practice. So practice is supposed to be, there's an integrity to the classroom, right?
Yes.
Where you can hear the coach, and there's an intimacy to practice that you lose when you go to the NCAA tournament. And that shocked me. How to be coached in front of 10,000 people.
Wow, that's a big crowd for a practice.
Yeah, it's just different. It's just not what you're used to. And I think other teams over the years learned how to have a private practice and a public practice.
Yeah.
But at that time, we were having real practice in front of the public.
All right, let's take a listen to this, Michael. A couple calls from you and Trav.
Blocked by Klingon again. Picked up off the window. 3-on-2 for the Blazers. Obvi at a bend. Up and under. Banks it in. Timeout, Minnesota. Blazers have their largest lead, 83-78. 18-6 run with 9:58 to play in the fourth. Back to Grant. 10 seconds to shoot. Has it straight away. Lost his dribble. Gets it back. Now he drives. Turns. 5 to shoot. Works into the lane. Stops. Fades. Short. Shaden Sharp with a putback. Cocked it back and slammed it down. My goodness. Woo! 91-83. He read it perfectly.
Well, I tell you what, after what we saw on Sunday against Memphis, those 2 nights, Tuesday and Wednesday against Minnesota, were a lot of fun. So I want to start with this. Were you surprised at the reaction from the team after they got chewed out by Coach Billups and the way they played on Tuesday and Wednesday? Because I honestly didn't know what to expect after Chauncey called him out for that poor performance.
No, and so I wasn't surprised. I just knew that the response was going to be dramatic one way or the other.
Yes.
Right? To me, this week kind of encapsulated what I would call high-low. You had the low point Sunday, getting blown out by Memphis with a lackluster effort. But then you had the high of the back-to-back wins over Minnesota. So I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew it was a defining moment in this season.
All right, Shaden Sharp, 33 points. That was a career high. He really carried them offensively in that fourth quarter, and his veteran teammates were looking to get him the ball. What did you think about the way he played? What jumped out at you?
What jumped out is it appeared as if he grew in his comfort being the go-to guy. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt about his skill set, what he's capable of, and we've seen it. But we haven't seen him as a closer, as a go-to guy. And as that started developing, it was very comfortable to watch. And I sensed that it was comfortable for the team to realize, hey, you know what? We have the ability against a set half-court defense to compromise that defense and get our best player or the player with the hottest hand multiple opportunities.
That's great. I was talking with Dave Deckard earlier, and he said that one thing that was a pleasant surprise so far with Shaden since he's come back is how comfortable he looks with his jump shot. Like, the offense looks really smooth. Is that surprising to you?
No, and it's part of the growth and development. It's kind of clicking the way you had anticipated and hoped it would, that Shaden Sharp would be able to become more rounded, for lack of a better word. In other words, we know he can use the dribble and get to the rim and finish in traffic. We know he can play through contact. We know he's a great point of attack defender, and we know his catch and shoot. But now he's a playmaker. That's the development where you don't know which one of those he's going to do, and then he's able to read the defense, time, and score and deliver what's needed.
You know, it also looked like Sharp was fairly engaged on the defensive end. What did you see from him there?
Yeah, no, he's a complete player. I mean, I don't like to use the word he's a two-way player because then he's 3-and-D, and there's a whole lot of gaps between 3-and-D, right? But Shaden Sharp is comfortable in a leadership role on both ends of the floor. And what we saw these last couple of games, at least what I saw, was a tick up in terms of taking the responsibility of being a go-to scorer in key stretches of the game.
All right. So Donovan Klingon, the rookie, as you know, 17 points, 12 boards, and 8 blocks. And after the game, he just said, hey, I love D.
I mean, I love defense. You know, I feel like that just brings energy to the team. It brings, you know, that's how you win ball games. So, you know, just having those big time blocks, getting the crowd into it. And, you know, I feel like, you know, that was a big turning point and, you know, big motivation for the team. And, you know, I'm just here to try to help my team win.
You got 31 minutes in that game. What did you think about Klingon's performance?
I mean, it was impressive. It was outstanding. But the part of it that stood out to me was the 2 early fouls.
Yes.
And playing without getting into foul trouble, but being dominant defensively without getting into foul trouble after early fouls. You don't usually see that in a young player, and most bigs experience foul trouble almost their entire rookie year. I mean, learning the nuances of the screening game and blocking out and what you can do and what you can't do. What we're seeing in Donovan Klingon is he has a poise and an experience about the physicality that comes with the NBA.
Yeah, you know, it's great. You've talked about this throughout the course of the season, that this team is at their best when their defense is really helping energize their offense, where they can get out and play at pace. And you could see that with every block that Klingon had and the way it was able to, you know, springboard a fast break or maybe an advantage on the other end. they took advantage of those opportunities.
Yeah, they did. And as much as I'd like to unpack 10 more examples of how that happened, you said it eloquently, and I've said it a lot. I want to kind of put the focus on when you get defensive stops, all right, you can run and you can play with pace. I've always thought that defense has a point person just like offense has a point guard. Now, that point person might be your guard. I mean, like a Gary Payton II, or, you can go down the list of different guys historically that have led their team's defensive charge. When that person is your center and he patrols the paint and blocks shots, changes shots, and discourages shots, there's a collateral benefit to that that's hard to quantify.
That's great. Defense, you and I have talked about this on the broadcast over the last week, but when they went through their struggles in the 3-game losing streak, you were talking about their initial guarding position not being where it needs to be, and it's allowing too much free movement. Obviously, it was better against Minnesota. With a young team, what is the process to coaching so that guys are in a better guarding position on a more regular basis?
Yeah, that initial guarding position, I harp on it a lot because it's the beginning of your breakdown and your problem. And while I'm not a coach on this staff and I have not coached in the league, I see how heavy video plays a role in how coaching happens today. You always see an assistant coach with a player with his laptop showing them things. And, players get sent video right to their phones that they can see and the minutes they play and breakdowns of all sorts. So I believe that what the team philosophically believes in is clearly understood by the players. And to me, that's why there's frustration and disappointment when you have a lot of breakdowns. Everybody gets broke down occasionally. The NBA has the best players in the world.
Yeah.
And a breakdown, if I could define it and describe it so listeners know what to look at when there's what I would call a total breakdown, is a straight line drive. When a player can put the ball on the floor and get to the rim before any help can get there, that's a straight line drive. That's the ultimate breakdown of your defense. Shots over pressure, contest, that's NBA. Straight line drives are unacceptable breakdowns.
And it looked like what we saw in the game on Wednesday when Klingon was blocking shots, that the guys on the perimeter were doing a better job of redirecting the bounce so that Klingon was in a better position to see what was coming, right?
No, they escorted him to a mugging, right? The guys, they guarded their guy. They funneled him to the pressure points.
Yeah.
And then you have an anchor like Klingon who, when you do that, can finish the possession. But Klingon is better than that, even when you don't do that. If Klingon sees the dribble penetration, he's very comfortable enforcing the law of verticality, where you can go straight up. As long as you take off from point A and you land at point A, you can make contact with an airborne offensive player. Not many defensive guys in the lane learn that or are willing to do that. Donovan Klingon is willing to do that.
I don't know if it's been the same for you, but when he came in the league, I was excited to see him play, but at least through my eyes, he moves a lot better for a man of his size than what I thought he would. He has pretty good feet.
Well, as time moves on, and the team plays with pace, you realize, wow, okay, he can play. He can get up and down. I go back to Summer League. I went to Summer League and watched him, and whenever he's on the floor, there's a presence and an impact. And it's consistent. And that's what you want from a big. And it's valued so much today because the versatility of that position. You go to stretch fives. You go to fives that have ball handling skills. I mean, look at the Anthony Davises and the Wembanyama. You look at a lot of guys that do a lot of things. Klingon is a traditional big, right?
Yeah.
And not that that's a lost thing in today's game, but we need to know what it is when we see it, that he's a traditional big, meaning he's physical at the point of screens, he's physical setting screens, and he's comfortable on the glass at both ends of the floor.
It's Michael Holton on Hoops. He's in studio. We're talking some ball right now. One guy that is usually in great guarding position initially is Toumani Camara. I thought he had a great all-around game with the points, the rebounds. He's shooting the three ball better this year. He seems like a Chauncey Billups type. What do you think about the way he's playing so far?
Oh, I just think Toumani Camara is definitely the type of player that this team is being built with and around. And Chauncey had the greatest quote about him after the game. He was asked about Toumani, and he said, every team in the league wants to have a Toumani Camara or they're trying to get a Toumani Camara. I just thought that was the greatest compliment that a player could get, but it was accurate. You have to have a guy that can guard multiple positions, that is comfortable as a point of attack defender without help. Most guys in the NBA, they won't say it. They're scared to death of being left on an island to guard the best players in the world.
Yes.
Tumani Kamara's like, where are they?
He wants them.
He's very comfortable in that space.
You know, it's great. I saw a report last week, but there were rumblings coming out that after the deal went down and the Blazers were able to secure Tumani Kamara, they were excited about it. But there were Suns players who were concerned because they knew what they had. They saw flashes in some of the practices where he had worked, and they were excited about him. So they knew when he left that a good one had gotten away. That's pretty exciting.
You know, and that's what's exciting, I think, right now when you come off these couple of wins, right? We talk about this weekend, what we saw in the back-to-back wins over Minnesota. You know, the NBA is really a tough environment to develop talent in my opinion, because the other team doesn't cooperate. I mean, veterans don't make room for younger players to come into the league and find their way because you're taking food off their table.
Yeah.
And so we're watching this remake and rebuild of this Trailblazer roster in real time. So you look at the Tumani Kamaras, the Rayon Rupairs, you know, you look at Donovan Clingan, you look at Scoot, you know, you look at Shaden, and even Ant to an extent. I mean, we really watch the organic growth of guys because they're getting minutes. Oftentimes, young players come into a league where there's veterans and you sit a year or you're part-time play. The league is so different now because there's a rush because of how quickly contract extensions become available for young talent to perform and produce.
Yeah. And the other guy that's really impressed me so far has been Delano Banton. When the Blazers got him, I didn't really know who he was. And then he got all those minutes at the end of last year where he had a chance to put up numbers. And I was like, okay, he's not playing with anyone. He's able to shoot as much as he wants. So I didn't really know what to make of it. But this year, he's continuing to play well. And even in this game the other night, running the offense, facilitating in the fourth quarter, like he's more than what I thought he was.
DB Hooper. Come on, man. Hey,
That's
Chad,
a great nickname.
Chad, if you're at the community center on Saturday morning and there's 50 guys and there's 2 baskets and there's 1 game, and your game comes up and you want to hold the court.
Yes.
Delano Banton going to be one of your first picks.
Yes.
I mean, a bucket getter that can break the defense down with the dribble, can get to the rim, can shoot the 3. And now what we're seeing is his playmaking ability, the floor general part of his game. We didn't get a chance to see a lot of because, quite frankly, when you're not in the rotation and you don't get to play much or you come in at the end of the game, you get buckets. I mean, you put up numbers. You get on the stat sheet. That's just kind of, I'm saying the quiet part out loud, right? But Delano Banton has been a team-first player in those situations.
You know, you told me something. We were talking about Billups and his decision to go with the nuclear option after that game on Sunday. And I asked you, I said, were you ever in situations when you were coaching where you had to call guys out? And you told me that you had multiple times where you look back now and you regret some of the decisions that you made or the way you voiced your concern or the way you dealt with players.
Yeah, because I'm emotional, right? And I was more emotional as a coach than I was as a player.
How so?
Well, I just felt like as a college coach, I felt like every day you needed to have a message. You needed to coach, teach, deliver. You needed to enforce and reinforce. And so I think in retrospect, I wish I would have let the players play more and let them display what they had learned versus thinking that there was additional information in real time in game that they needed. And the late John Wooden said it best. I had many conversations with him about it when he was alive and I was an assistant at UCLA. And he said, you know, I think television has made actors out of coaches. He said, because before there were television, coaches sat down and the players played. And then when television came, all of a sudden coaches are running up and down the sideline, acting out, being emotional. And that always stayed with me. So I was never that type of coach, right, that ran up and down the sidelines. But I held it in and it came out at halftime.
But how would you learn that about yourself unless you're actually in that position to coach, right?
Well, it's just a part of, you know, life's lessons. How do we get life's lessons? Experience is what you get when you go through something versus what you get by going around it.
Now, I think you told me before, how much do you value those moments where you would go to pick up Mr. Wooden and he would be waiting on the curb for you and on the appointed time that he gave you, right? If it was 4 o'clock, he was always early. What were those moments like?
First of all, it only happened one time, Chad. And the story goes, I called Coach Wooden and I said, Coach, I want to ask you a question. I'm the recruiting coordinator, and I want to ask you a question. You know, you built this program, and I want to talk to you about how to market it. And he said, well, come and get me, take me to church on Sunday, and after church, we'll have breakfast, and you can ask me whatever you want. So I'm thinking, that's more than I asked for, right? And so, yes, I'm driving to get Coach Wooden to take him to church, and I'm early, and he's standing on the corner. I'm looking at my watch. I'm like, why is Coach Wooden standing on the corner? And so I pull up, and I think I let the window down, and I was like, Coach. He said, yeah, I just didn't want you to have to park and come up. I'm ready. He gets in the car. So I didn't have the time to park and walk up and get ready. I pull up, and 15 seconds later, Coach Wooden's in the car. And we drive to his church, Chad, and it was so interesting because everybody at his church knows him, right? I mean, he's Coach Wooden. He's John Wooden. And I'm kind of standing around trying to, be with him. I felt like his bodyguard. I was just kind of around. But long story short, we went to eat. We sat down. And I asked him a couple of questions, and we don't have time in this podcast. He gave me some of the most phenomenal perspectives and answers, cloaked in humility.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, I will never forget.
And that's one meeting. That's one moment where you go to church and you sit down, you have the opportunity to ask questions, and look at the impact it made.
Yeah, no, it impacted me in a large way. One of the things I probably can say in the time that we have was there's this drill that coaches all do called 3-on-2, 2-on-1, continuous.
Yeah.
Where you just go up and down, and try to get your guys just getting conditioned and playing at high speeds.
Yes.
And so he created the drill, right? Practical Modern Basketball is the #1 selling basketball textbook of all time. John Wooden wrote it. So I asked him about that drill at that breakfast. And he says, Michael, that's not an offensive drill. I built that to build our press. And I was just floored at how misinterpreted and applied that particular drill is based on what the architect of it planned.
Wow. That's awesome. All right, Holton on Hoops, Michael Holton. Thank you for your time, my friend. See how quick that went by?
No, man, it's a pleasure. Keep having me.
All right, you going to watch the fight tonight?
Yeah, I can't wait to get home, man. Come on, Tyson. Come on, baby.
Boy, did you see him slap Paul yesterday at the weigh-in?
Yeah, it was like wrestling. It was a stage. I don't know. Jake Paul probably going to knock him out. I don't know.
We're going to find out. All right, big thanks to Michael Holton. We'll keep things rolling. Rip City Drive.
So, no, I got to.
Yeah, Michael Holton, that guy's the real deal. Big fan of Michael Holton. And very thankful that he has a chance to come in and do a little Holton on hoops. You know, there's some people, maybe you can relate to this, but you know, some people, and I can remember people like this throughout the course of my life, but you know, when you spend time around certain people and you just, when it's over, you're like, man, I'm better because I spent time around that person. Michael Holton's one of those guys. He's one of those guys. Good dude. Good dude. All right, let's go back out to the phones. We're gonna third time is a charm. He called in twice. We got the crackling. I think it was ear pod or whatever you call those things related. We go out to Mitch in New Jersey, who's back. Mitch, my friend, what's going on?
Chad, thanks again. I hope this is better. I didn't have enough time to go to the T-Mobile store. I'm back here. You know, within now. You know, that'd been too much.
That's okay.
You know how it is.
Yeah, I understand. What's going on, man? What's cracking?
What's cracking? Well, I think USC. I think we're stuck with Rowley. He kind of reminds me of Chip Kelly. Overrated, overpaid, definitely. We're losing quarterbacks. I hope they can wheel in. I'm liking this change in Miami, but hopefully they get not Juju. I'm hoping they make change over to Longstreet, Hudson Longstreet, and the kid Lonnie from up Northern California. But I'm hoping. Well, your Ducks are sitting good, sitting pretty number one, right? Can't get any better than that, crazy than that, right?
They look good.
Look up Ole Mississippi with ex-USC quarterback Jackson Dart, and I'm liking Tennessee because their quarterback is from California, and his brother is going to be a quarterback next year, freshman at UCLA. USC pretty much misses on everything, 80%. And it must have something to do with the NIL. You maybe have short hands, deep pockets. I don't know what the story is on, but it's getting out of hand. It really is for everybody.
No, I agree.
To keep track. I mean, I guess it's a tax write-off, but you know, these schools. It's more exciting than the baseball and football free agency.
Are you going to watch the fight tonight, Tyson and Paul?
Nah, I'm not paying them money. Why is Tyson fun? He's a pretty good comedian. He does public speaking. He's up there. He's funny. I mean, I've seen both brothers. They always get the mix up. I'm forgetting their names. In Living Color, the Wyman brothers.
Yeah, Wayans.
Two of them.
Yeah, Wayans brothers.
Well, there's two of them. Yeah, right, Wayans brothers. I stand corrected again. Funny. They did a show like an hour and a half, off top of their heads. They hit on every line, everything. It's just funny. I think a comedy show is just as good as sporting events.
I love it. I'll put you on hold. Your phone wasn't better, Mitch, but I let it go for 2 minutes because I respect you. I respect
Doing the
you,
Lord's
Mitch.
work, Chad.
I know. Gosh. I mean, who has a landline? Do you have a landline?
No, I haven't had a landline in middle school, high school, somewhere along those lines. I still know a few OGs that still have landlines, Chad. I mean, if you've got a landline and you know who you are, you're old school, man. You're old school.
No, there's nothing better when you reach out to someone, hey, you want to come on the show? And I'm like, what number do you want us to call us on? Well, here, let me give you this as my landline. I'm like, yes, because you know it's going to be a secure connection. But that's like few and far between. I have no desire to have a landline. I kind of wish I didn't have a cell phone and people couldn't bother you all the time. The problem is now is that people expect immediate response. You know, that's just the way it is. That's the society we live in. All right. Have you pulled up Netflix yet? I haven't been able to pull it up yet to see what's going on.
Yeah, I'll take a look here.
Yeah, take a peek. They probably, my guess is Tyson Paul won't go until about 7:30. Let's check the drive home. I got places to be. Yeah, Tyson. Holton's going to watch too, and he's not so sure. Let's see here. Tony in Portland, the cell phones, F you, and apparently the doors do too. I know, man. I'm all jacked up. Got the doors locked on Michael Holton. Mitch is calling in with the bad phones. Didn't have time to go to the T-Mobile store. That's what he told me. All right, so we got big stuff coming up tomorrow. Big stuff. Big stuff tomorrow. Big games. And then on Sunday, I think I told you that the big game to watch tomorrow, aside from Oregon, to see what they do against Wisconsin, it's Georgia and Tennessee. And then the question is, how's the committee going to treat the SEC when it comes to having 5 or 6 teams that are possibly eligible? That's going to be a big deal. So we'll keep an eye on that. In the NFL, you know, the games I'm going to be paying attention to, Pittsburgh taking on Baltimore, big division game, first division game for Pittsburgh this year. and then you've got Buffalo and Kansas City. The Sunday night game's good because Cincinnati's trying to get into that final playoff spot in the AFC, and they're going to be taking on the Chargers, who are definitely in the playoff race. So a lot of things to keep an eye on. Right now, NBA Lakers on top of the Spurs down in San Antonio, 68-60. Wemby has 16 at the half. Anthony Davis has 26 for the Lakers. So that's where we're at. And then personally, definitely going to tune in Arizona State and Kansas State. I'm telling you, it's what time is it tomorrow? 4 o'clock on ESPN. If you've not had a chance to watch ASU, tune in tomorrow just to check out their running back, Cam Scatterbo. He is one of the most electric players in college football. He's an absolute workhorse. He's got a tough mentality, and he probably won't get the Heisman invite, but he's definitely deserving of it. But he's going to play tomorrow. He took last game off, had a shoulder ding after the Oklahoma State game. Did not play against UCF, but he'll go tomorrow. And that's a big game because both those teams at 7-2, angling to get into the Big 12 title game. All right, that's going to do it for us. Big thanks to Dave Deckard, to Brandon Krisztal, and Michael Holton. Big thanks to Brendan Slaughter for engineering the program. Next broadcast will be on Sunday. Chris Burkhart will have Blazers game day at 1. I will have the Trailblazer pregame show at 2 and tip-off with the Hawks at 3. All right, enjoy the fight tonight. Enjoy your weekend. Talk to you on Monday.